dance. Any kind of cultural dance that you participate in is a great way to indigenize wellness, or just anything in general that makes you feel good, whether it be physical activities such as swimming, maybe archery. Anything that makes you feel good is a way to indigenize wellness.
And using those teachings that you've had and incorporating them into your life. Those teachings were meant to be techniques of wellness, but due to colonization and the Western lens on indigenous people, they're seen to be primitive and not the right way to acknowledge your wellness. But they're meant for physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness.
We are adapting to our cultural ways, whether it be Uwipi or Inipi, which is sweat and night ceremony for Lakota people. Also picking Titla during the summer to show the children a more proactive way of what our traditional people used to do. And Titla stands for turnips. The other outlooks we have for Native people would be cultural exchanges, or also learning the language.
Through painting and weaving, I'm able to relearn my cultural teachings and learn my Navajo language.
I think being wellness, it goes beyond just being mentally healthy and physically. It's a matter of having positive people around you, getting involved with your elders to engage with your traditions, to understand your cultural roots. Because I think it's important, especially with, the society that we grow up in today, with Western institutions and going off to colleges and talking about high schools and, urban communities. It's important to remember, your tribal identity and to understand that it sets the foundation for who you are and what you think is important to persevere, in life. And it sets, the boundaries on what you think your people might need help with, what you need help with, and from there I think it gives you a passion. So just to always remember your cultural roots, to engage with them, speak to your elders, and who knows what you could be, what you could do or who you could become in the future.
You have the right to be free, you have the right to beauty and to fairness, to equity, to love, to family, and any of those institutions that get in your way need to get out of your way. So part of wellness is resistance. It's resilience, being strong in the face of adversity. It's about embracing our way, which is a holistic way. Everything is connected, so if you want to be well, you must look after a lot of things, not just one thing. So yeah, you're looking after a lot of things at once, and it's not just about you. We're connected to the things around us, we're connected to loved ones and to family, we bring them along, and they hold us up. So we mustn't be isolated or alone. So good luck out there, be well.
Where we have an audience building up as well as everybody logging in. So thank you for joining us. We have a lot in store for you. My name is Joseph Davis.
And I'm Susan Fisher, and we will be serving as your co-host today.
So like I said, we have a lot in store for you. This is pretty unique to be able to do this, to be able to bring unity to all of you guys instead of just having everybody come to mid-year and the national conference. It's a new approach that we're taking to everything. So hopefully we can still give you guys a lot of information and we can still have fun at the same time. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start this off with the best way that we know how, and that's going to be a prayer by Mr. Adam Cardona from Gila River. So we'll go ahead and do that at this time.
Okay, hello everybody. I just wanted to thank everybody for attending and or logging on. So we're going to go ahead and start our prayer. Creator, I ask that you pray for those I want to thank those who are hosting us today and for going ahead and inviting us and having us here. Creator, I ask that you bless those who have not just made it yet, and even those who are here, and everybody all around in our community. I ask that you bless our hearts, you bless our minds and our souls, and allow us to carry these motives with passions to those who are in need. Creator, I ask that you fill us with enlightenment and lead us to carry out these motives and hopefully create a better future for those in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for that prayer, Adam. Now we're going to be welcoming Jacob Moore, the Associate Vice President of the Office of Government and Community Engagement, to give us a welcoming.
Thank you very much. It's good bash. Good morning. Anyab Juge, Jacob Moore. My name is Jacob Moore. I'm the Associate Vice President of Tribal Relations for Arizona State University. We are honored for Arizona State University to be hosting Unity's Wellness Warrior virtual conference. I understand this is quite historic. This is the first event of its kind for Unity. And on behalf of President Crow, Dr. Brian Brayboy, who's our special advisor on American Indian initiatives here at ASU, we welcome you and we appreciate the opportunity to help showcase this very first event. In terms of the recognition, not only for the acknowledgement of our traditional ways and the concepts that you're going to be discussing today about wellness and decolonizing wellness and how we think about our communities and how we approach our communities, particularly as young people. This is a great opportunity for you to bring back those things that were important to our elders and to those generations that came before us. Arizona State University is one of the first universities in the United States that acknowledges that we're located on ancestral lands of the people that came before us, the Huacum, and more recently in the immediate area, the Akimirautam and the Pipash, that we have a statement from President Crow that acknowledges that all of our campuses are located on ancestral lands of indigenous people that came before us. It's part of our commitment from Arizona State University to not only acknowledge, the understanding of what that means, but also the fact that we're dedicated to programming and students and services, that we have over 3,000 American Indian students that attend ASU. This is the largest number of any major university. We have over 30 faculty, American Indian faculty, that are not, just in the places where we would typically think we would find them, in things like American Indian Studies and social justice and transformation, but we have Native faculty that are in engineering, that are in architecture, that are in construction. And so we celebrate, the work that we can do here in Arizona State University and the resources that we can bring to the table in working hand in hand with Unity and all of those that are out there, participating by way of technology through virtual technology and virtual conferences. I'm getting to the age where I can't even describe these things that young people are doing when it comes to technology. But I appreciate the fact that you're looking at this from the perspective of warriors and of the idea of wellness and balance, these things that are part of who we are. It's in our DNA. It's who we are in terms of the ancestors that came before us. In closing, the one thing I do want to mention as an announcement from Arizona State University is that we had a press release yesterday that announced that ASU will be the new home for Indian Country Today. Indian Country Today is the #1 online publication for Indian country, and that we will now house the Indian Country Today at the Cronkite School of Journalism, and that Mark Trahan, the new editor, will be leading that effort. They'll still maintain an office in Washington, D.C., but this is a great opportunity for us, as hopefully some of you are interested in journalism and communications, that we're creating new pathways. So we look forward to the day, we look forward to the next few hours, and we know that you'll be creating new pathways as well, but those pathways will be based on the understandings and the traditional knowledge that has been laid before you. So again, welcome, and we're excited, and we look forward to all of the speakers and the presenters, and thank you to all the students that are participating today. Masapo, thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. We'd like to thank him for his time and for the partnership and for allowing this to take place here today. And we have a small gift to show our appreciation on behalf of Unity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it one more time for Jacob Moore. All right, so continuing with our agenda, let's see if already, okay. So continuing on, we're actually going to welcome up Dr. Pearly Elliman, longtime Unity alumni and lead trainer, to come on up and share some words as well. So let's give a round of applause for Dr. Pearly Elliman.
Awesome. Good morning. Or good afternoon. Good afternoon. Depends on which res you come from. I was looking forward to this day because I knew I'd get to see you guys and be part of the Unity family and celebrate this virtual conference. So thank you to Unity staff and the youth who are here to be part of the first ever virtual conference. So give yourselves a round of applause and a high five to your neighbors. This is pretty amazing. And when I heard of the topic, I thought, well, one, we're already wellness warriors. So out there, out in Indian country, for those of you who are watching and listening in, and even in here in the room here, raise your hand if you were a part of getting your own food this week, that you hunted or you gathered your own food this week. Really? What did you do? You went looking for spinach. Awesome. How about you, Lauren Ashley?
I harvested my urban garden.
Awesome. How about you? Okay, that kind of counts. That counts. All right. Well, one, I want to talk about several things. One, when we talk about wellness, is our food. And I'm not just talking about the food that we eat every day, but I'm talking about what our generation will be faced with. And when I say we, I mean our lifetime. Our lifetime right now, you think about our grandparents were very fortunate that maybe they lived in a lifetime where they hunted for their own food or they gathered their own food or it was a part of their lifestyle at one time. So something happened in the last generation and then now it comes to us, our lifetime. Did you know that we will be the very first generation to live on almost 100% of processed foods? We will be that group. We will be that generation. So when I talk about food and wellness, I'm talking about you as leaders, what you will be faced with as leaders in your community. And that's addressing the first generation to live of processed foods. So not only will we have to understand what that will do to our bodies, but our bodies are different as Indian people. We lived on this planet, on this earth for thousands of years, not knowing what this last generation of processed foods will do to us. And as young leaders, as young wellness warriors, you have the influence. You have the influence. If you have a younger brother or sister or an older auntie or uncle, you're right in the middle. You have the ability to influence the people who are younger than you and the people who are older than you. So I just want you to think about that. That's just food. You have the ability to say, you know, let's walk over there instead, or let's eat this, or let's plant, or let's look for our own spinach. You have the ability to do that, and you have the power to do that. So that's food. When I start thinking about what it means to be a wellness warrior today, you also have the ability to be warriors in understanding knowledge. If you have a phone right in front of you, you have the ability to open up that phone or a laptop or a computer and access data. You are data warriors now. You lead data for your time. And anything you lead, you're a warrior in. So you lead data. You, other than any other generation that we've ever had, you have data and knowledge at your fingertips. And some of you are probably multitasking right now. You're probably either on your phone listening or doing something that you're getting more information on as we talk or sit here and listen. So you're data warriors. What does that mean to be a data warrior? What does that mean to utilize data in that way to transform your life and your community's life? Every day I'm in a position where I have to use data. Data helps me to know the weather. That's data. Data helps me to know the road conditions. That's data. Data helps me to know what my car is, empty or full. That's data. That's really important. That's just to start my day. And then data starts to tell me which direction I want to go in, especially the team I lead. So your data warriors. The other thing I want you to think about as well is this whole year and the last several years, we've been thinking and hearing about being water protectors. And how many of you have heard that in the last 5 years, being a water protector? It's true. We are water protectors. We are water warriors. But also we're language warriors too. We're language warriors. And we're land warriors. You have the ability to influence any type of decisions and policies that can change the land, the language, and water. I was fortunate this year to travel to Hawaii. I took my mom there for her 83rd birthday. And the island we were on, they banned straws, and they also banned plastic bags. That may seem really insignificant, but 1 year after they banned plastic bags, sea turtle population increased by 50%. Just by decreasing or just by banning plastic bags. Think about your community right now. What could you ban in your community? It could be as simple as a plastic bag, and that's going to change somebody's life. Think about what you could change or have an insert in policy in your own community. That's going to change somebody's life. Now I come back here, I'm like, at Cane's, hey, I don't need a straw. I'm at Phil Burcho's, I was like, that's all right, I don't need a straw. And it changes my thinking. It changes my thinking. So now I'm like, no straws. I'm like, that's all right, I'll carry out my zucchinis. Just kidding. I'll carry my groceries out. So you have that influence in your own community. And if you're in that place in your own community where you're practicing your own language, that's being a language warrior. I was so excited, I jumped in, I didn't even introduce myself. Dinek eche tsena bitlinchle, arok tizalana bashichin, tobahanda shiche arohanawani dashanele. And this year I had the good blessing of being appointed by President Jonathan Nez as the Executive Director of Community Development for the Navajo Nation. And I didn't realize how blessed of a position that was to have an influence over the Navajo Nation and be a part of the Navajo Nation in that way. We have something like the junk food tax or the good health food tax. It has a street name called the junk food tax, but it's a good food tax. And I have the ability to review all the different communities and how they utilize their good food tax. And many of the communities, 110 communities, use it for paths, walking paths, healthy foods, wellness classes. And sometimes I say, oh, I know this instructor, or oh, I know, and throughout 110 communities. And that's just one thing that probably brightens my day when I get to read how they're using their sales tax in that way. So that was something that I was blessed with this year. So I'm a mother of 3 children. I have a son who is 22, and he was a firefighter. And then I have a daughter who just turned 21. And then I have a daughter in high school who will be 17 this year. So I'm really proud. I'm proud to be a mother as well. I also want to share something too. And part of understanding wellness is understanding how we communicate with each other. And when I think about decolonizing wellness, and I want to say thank you to Mr. Moore to acknowledging the land we're on. The land we're on is a beautiful city, and it's a beautiful sunny day outside. But underneath this land is a civilized structure. And civilized, and what I mean by that is the ancient technology. And that ancient technology surpassed thousands of years of being utilized, but also survival. So then I think, now, who are we today? What has happened to our wellness and our concept of wellness? And I start to think our wellness is not something that is static. It's not something that stands still. And as Indian people, our wellness is something constantly moving and evolving. That's what it has become for us. You think back to your parents, your grandparents, and their grandparents, and in just 2 generations, wellness has changed for us. It has been something different for every generation, where it was the same for thousands of years, just prior to 2 or 3 generations. I know that because I think about parenting. For 1,000 or 10,000 years, parenting was very similar. It remained the same. But in the last 3 or 4 generations, parenting has been different for every parent in my lineage. Every parent in my lineage has experienced something dramatic in their lifetime that now parenting for me is completely different. So has wellness. So wellness is in motion. Wellness is something about moving. And the thing that makes us blessed about Indian people is our wellness is not the same as the Western world. Our wellness is so beautiful that if we were to have a medical doctor here and explain to us what wellness is, his definition and our definition would be different. And our definition would be better. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. To them, it might be a weight number, or it might be a height, or some type of a number. But for us, when we talk about wellness, we talk about spiritual wellness. We talk about mental wellness and emotional wellness and physical wellness. All those 4, and even around us, those are all different types of wellnesses that we encompass every day. So if there's guests out there, how many guests do we have logged in today? Guessing?
About 20 watch parties.
Okay, so maybe out here, if you can do this with me, stand up. I want you guys to stand up and put your arms out. Awesome. If you bump hands with the neighbors, just say hi. So right here, I just need you to make a complete circle like that. A complete circle. Awesome. Awesome. Now you can have a seat. Everything inside of that is your wellness world. Everything inside of that is your wellness world, and we are responsible for that. And as young brothers, you out there, young brothers and young sisters, you are responsible for the food you eat. You are responsible for the sleep you get. You are responsible for the emotional health and the mental health and the spiritual health you put inside of that. I can't tell you what to eat. You have to make that decision. But I want to encourage you. I can't tell you how to move. You are responsible. That's the power of having our own wellness. But also, young people, I want you to know too, as brothers and sisters, we watch out for each other. We're also faced something in our generation that we've never had before, and that's having to watch out for our brothers and sisters on a different level. The more I travel and the more communities I come across, someone and some family is affected by a missing and murdered individual. Not just our sisters, but also our brothers as well. Some families are still searching for a lost auntie or uncle in their family. So that's something when I say we're responsible for ourselves, but we're also responsible to take care of each other and look out for each other. Especially here in the city, looking out for each other. If you see a Native brother or sister in need or hurting, or maybe they just need someone to talk to, that's you right there. You saw that for a reason. You saw them for a reason. They caught your eye for a reason. So I am going to wrap up here in a little bit, but I have some images I want to share. I'm just kidding. Can I step out so I can look at them? So if you can see these images, they're a little bit blurry to me. So I believe in this. I believe that anytime you talk good to yourself, your body transforms. And I believe that anytime you talk good to a friend or a pet or a parent or a family member or a loved one, you transform them and you transform yourself. I also know that or believe that because we have studies that show us and knowledge and data that show us when you talk negatively to someone or something, it transforms them. And these are some images of what molecules look like after you talk positively to water. There's another image here that I saw that when you pray right before you drink water, it transforms the molecules of water. So if anyone ever says, I don't believe in prayer, you show them, you go, hey, look, I want to show you something. There's even one that says, love and appreciation. If you just show gratitude to somebody, or even gratitude to yourself, oh man, that was a tough week of testing. I want to chill back tonight, or I want to take care of myself. I want to self-care or sacred care. That's wellness right there. And anytime you do that, you transform yourself. Anytime you do that, you transform the other person that you're communicating with. Or anytime you reach out and say, man, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. You transform them. Or if you know that you have a friend who's maybe a little bit down and you say, hey, let's just have a quick prayer. Or let's just sing a song. Let's sing or listen to our favorite song. Whatever it might be, it's going to transform. I have to practice this every day. There's times where I'm like, Marge Simpson, I'm all, just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm on the road, I'm all, then I'm like, okay, chill, need to chill and calm down. But I also believe that putting positive vibes out into the universe matters. I also believe that putting positive vibes out into the world matters, because it matters for me. And when I think, I want my family to be taken care of, or I want my job to go well, I want the universe to hear that. I want that. So if you look up vibration health, you'll see these. You'll see more images very similar to this. Also, there's more images too. It's a little bit dark. If you see this one about the language on hate, that's pretty real. And it really is true. I mean, you think about it. You think about someone who said those words to you, or you think about somebody who said something very negative to you. Or, and something that happened to me, I had a relative send me a message through social media, and it was really negative. And it really, I could feel it really did something to me. And all I could think of was, one, I don't want to show my family. I don't want my family to feel what I felt. And two, I have to pray for my cousin or God, something, you know? So it's true. Somebody talks negative to you. it really does something to you. And sometimes you can say, I had a good week. I just came from my Unity family. I don't need that negativity. I just had a good Friday with my Unity family. I don't need that negativity. So you can tell people that that's your wellness. That's what you're responsible for. You're responsible not just for the food you eat or the sleep you get, but you're responsible with what kind of vibration or energy that comes into your circle. You're responsible for that. And it's up to you as wellness warriors to take care of that. It's up to you as wellness warriors to teach other young people about that. It's up to you to make those kind of decisions and have that kind of influence in your own community. So I'm going to wrap things up here. I'm really thankful, always thankful to be part of Unity. I've been part of Unity for many years now, and I really do think that when I look back at any type of success that I've had, and not just Western success, all success, being healthy and being a contributing member to my community, it really has come from Unity. When I think about some of the planning meetings you have in your youth councils, or when I think about the late nights of you guys planning a youth conference and putting all the logistics together, or when I think about all the times that you sat around the fire and supported a friend or needed support, those are everything that I use today in my own life. Or when I think about the friends that I made at Unity, and now 30 years later, I still have those friends. Or when I think about going to a community and I think I might not know anyone, that's not true, because of Unity, I know more people than I would have ever imagined. And when I think about being part of the Unity family, I think about what does that mean? When you think about how Unity was developed 40 plus years ago, one person had a vision to create a place for youth to come together and a platform. That vision has done its job for 40 years. But now, what is your vision for your community? And what will that vision do for your community? That one vision now has to breathe life into thousands more visions for those tribal communities that you live in. So now you have to think, what do I want for my own community, or my own school, or even my own circle? So I'm going to leave it there, and I am looking forward to the rest of the conference. I have, I think, some workshops this afternoon, and this is really cool. So thank you, Unity family, for always just kind of keeping me in the loop and always keeping me informed about what's going on. And thank you for ASU for having us here, and also to the youth that have come in, the local youth councils, and to the advisors. I work with the advisors. I work with you. If you're an advisor and you're online right now and you're having a listening party or a virtual conference party, advisors, you rock. You guys have done a lot, and you are out there maintaining your youth councils. You're out there fundraising. You are out there constantly recruiting and planning stuff for the next event. And I really believe that youth councils save lives. And if you're an advisor out there, that's what you're doing. You're teaching your students in your youth council how to do that. So thank you to the advisors too as well. Okay, thank you. See ya.
So welcome back. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you're just now tuning in, we are going through our very first Unity Wellness Warrior Virtual Conference. So Istango, Sinaliosida, and Magali Aklava Habandi Yamasi Seminoles. I'm Lauren Ashley Buford, and I'm Yamasi Seminole from Florida. I am the new project manager of the OJJDP Peer Guides program, and I will also be joined with our executive director a little later on. The video you just saw was actually of our Wellness Warrior mobile app. Another feature that Wellness Warriors was able to introduce through this project was to listen to Native youth and get their feedback on a virtual tool that Native youth could take from the Unity conferences back to their homelands and communicate while away from the conferences. So we got everyone's feedback, and periodically we do updates. So if you haven't downloaded or checked out the app recently, make sure to do so. The video showed a little bit about what it covers. What we heard from Native youth was exactly like Pearly Elliman talked about, was wellness looks different for Indigenous people. Some of the feedback we got from Native youth was we really wanted our mobile app to be focused on the 4 pillars of unity. So first off, mental health and mental wellness. On the Unity mobile app, you can actually log on and track how you're feeling each day. And instead of doing it like a scale 1 to 5, it was actually the 4 directions of a medicine wheel. We thought this was really important, especially when we heard youth wanted a way to help those who may have suicidal thoughts and how it could interact with those at home. So the idea is using the mobile app to log your daily habits, how you're feeling, how are you feeling mentally, how are you feeling spiritually, how are you feeling socially, emotionally. So if you're ever in need of some additional help, you would be able to take that log and take it to a counselor and say, look, I've been feeling like a 0 for the past 4 days. And that would be a tool that we could use to help talk about our mental health, to help end stigmas around mental health and really seek help. So that's available for free on the Wellness Warrior mobile app. The second one is physical health. We all know the health disparities that Native youth face around the country, but we wanted it to be more of a reward system. This is brand new. We actually have a pedometer. So every day you can go in there and log your steps. You can make daily goals for yourself, whether you are a wellness warrior at 1,000 steps or if you're a wellness warrior at 10,000 steps. We want you to log on and set your daily goals, and then you can track them over time. And what we've found is sometimes when we're feeling our best is when we're actually active the most. So you can compare those things over time through the log. Last, but certainly not least, are the 2 pillars of social wellness and spiritual wellness. Those are actually found in different ways on our mobile app. We knew we didn't just want to focus on physical wellness or mental wellness. So what we did was take a very important part of Unity and put it on the mobile app. When you log on to the app, you can actually see a Unity virtual fire. So Unity Fire is very important. It's where all of our Native Youth Councils gather at conferences to share songs, to share different stories, and to just pray for one another, to be a good relative to one another. So on the mobile app, you can go around the virtual fire and you can not only share language, you can upload, you can record yourself to say how do you say certain words in your language and share them with Native youth. You can also upload traditional food recipes. If you don't know how to cook one of your traditional meals, you look on there and see all the other recipes that other people have uploaded. For me, in the South, we eat alligators. So if you log on, you'll see a little picture of me butchering an alligator, and it's really good. So I gave you my grandma's recipe, so don't share it with anybody unless they're on the app, okay? But then the last part, this is brand new on the app. We actually just now uploaded a section where you can send encouraging messages to one another. We really want to make sure that Native youth are able to connect to each other and encourage each other to be well. Because honestly, youth councils, we are our own best advocates for health and wellness. So there's a lot of other great tools on the app. And for that, I really want to bring up Mary Kim Titla, our Executive Director of Unity, to really talk about the project planning and what we want you guys to do as you move forward after this virtual conference. All right, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, Ashley, Dagot. My name is Mary Kim Titla. I'm the Executive Director of Unity. It's really great to see all of you here. This is super exciting, and I'm really appreciative of the staff and all those that participated in the planning. I also just want to say very quickly, you will not see me making any alligator stew because first of all, it's hard to catch an alligator here in Arizona. But secondly, I want to promote the app and the Wellness Warrior Challenge, because I actually have taken the challenge and I took it earlier this year. Some of you have made New Year's resolutions. How many of you do that? I know I can't see the online hands, but a few hands went up in here. So I decided to do 1 mile of walking a day. I can't run at the moment because I have a small tear in my meniscus, and until that gets repaired, I can't run, but I'm walking. So 1 mile a day since the new year, and I've been staying true to that. So I want to encourage everyone out there to walk, to move, to eat healthy. And I know that that can be a challenge for many. What I'd like to talk about are the special projects that we want you all to be engaged in. And many of you are involved in those projects already. How many of you in here are doing community service projects? All of you should be, right? Because we have young people here in the audience who are members of youth councils, and we know that you're involved in community service projects. I also want to ask those who are watching online, if you could type into the chat box or into the question box what type of community service project your youth council is involved in. We do want to make this interactive with our audience online, so if you could type into the chat box or the question box what type of community service project your youth is involved in. We want to reward all of those who are doing these projects, and I know that all of you get self-gratification out of it. You're not really doing it for awards, right? You're not doing it for a reward or a prize, but we do want to offer that to those who are engaged in community service work. And the way we do that at Unity is by offering registrations as part of a raffle to the national conference. And I know for some youth councils that is a big deal, because a lot of youth councils fundraise all year long and they don't have the means, right? They don't always have that support from a large sponsor to help them get to the national conference, and they fundraise. And so if you win registrations, that is a big help. Right now, the registration fee is $325, and then it's going to go up on site to $400. So imagine if you won 1, 2, or 3 of those and add that all up. So that's a big chunk, right, of finances that can be of help to you. We also give other prizes, and one of the things that we do at the national conference is we showcase a youth council who has done these good works. And so, but the only thing is we need to know about it. If we don't know about it, we can't reward you. So we're going to have a group of people, a committee, select a winning youth council who will do a presentation at the national conference. And we did this last year. So if you've been involved in community service work, we want you to submit an entry, and it could be done in various ways. You can submit a video, you can submit a written report, and you can also submit a PowerPoint. And what we want to do with these youth council reports is put them online so that no matter what, people get to see what you're doing. So we want to encourage all of our regions to be involved, and hopefully we can get our executive committee then from the National Unity Council challenging their regions to submit these youth council projects so that we know what you're doing and that we can promote them far and wide. So the next question I want to ask is to our audience, our online audience, in the chat box or the question box, if you could talk about your own individual wellness warrior plan. So what is your wellness plan? Do you want to eat better this year? Do you want to exercise more? And you know what, and I really appreciate Pearl talking about wellness from a cultural perspective, because what that means is leading a balanced life, right? In our Apache culture, we believe in balance, and the way that we do that is through our culture. And I know that many tribes and indigenous people around the world believe in that as well. So what does that mean? Mental health, right? Physical, social, spiritual. We have those 4 core elements within Unity's logo, and you can see the logo behind me, and you can't maybe see online the whole symbol, but we have the 4 core elements on each section, and that was really designed for a purpose. Many don't know the origin of Unity, and the founder of Unity, J.R. Cook, who is a member of the Cherokee Nation, challenged a group of young people and brought them together as a focus group and asked them about this idea of an organization. He didn't even have a name for it. He asked the young people because he wanted this to be youth-led, he wanted this to be youth-inspired, and so the young people came up with the name Unity. So of course, Unity is an acronym. Again, it's on this logo, United National Indian Tribal Youth. So we want to thank the visionaries, the youth at that time who came up with this name, and then came up with the mission statement, which speaks to wellness and those 4 core areas. And that is to foster the development of the mental, social, spiritual, and physical wellness of Native youth. And so I just again want to give a shout out to those back in the day who came up with that. And as some of you know, Unity was founded when? 1976. Awesome. Some of you have done your homework. Thank you for that. So I like to, and Sleepy Eye LaFramboise, many of you know him, he's a firekeeper at our Unity conferences. He likes to categorize our alumni from the 1900s and from the 2000s. And so I'm from the 1900s and proud of it. So late 1900s, I want to say. So, okay. Well, we're going to toss to some questions. And again, for our online audience and those of you who are here can also participate. Some of you have a notepad and piece of paper. I appreciate that you have that. First of all, the first question we're going to put up, and I believe that you'll be able to see this online. There's 5 questions, okay? The first one is, how many of you have downloaded the Wellness Warrior app? And I can just, if you want to show, have a show of hands in here. So a handful, good, maybe half of you. So we still have some that should be downloading it, right? All of you, let's see your phones. Let's see your phones. I know you have it. Many of you have it. Well, their advisors told them to put it away, I'm sure. So anyway, when you are able to, please download it. Okay, next question. These are short answers. And again, how many have downloaded and checked out our app? It's a yes or no question. Just hit yes or no and then submit. Okay, we'll give a few more seconds before we go on to the next question. There's lots of good stuff on the app, and I hope that you'll check it out. Okay, so we're going to go to the next question. Oh, and there you see the poll results. Instantaneous, awesome. 60% have downloaded of the audience, online audience. So 40% are going to, right? We're going to take that as they're going to. All right, so coming up, next question. What do you prefer? And I'm waiting for the question to pop up here because this is a very, select one of the following. Oh, as far as a name, what would you prefer as a group to be called? Would you prefer Native American, American Indian, or Indigenous? How many for number 1 here in the live audience? Native American, 1. Okay. How many for number 2, American Indian? Interesting. Okay, so we got 3 and 3. And the last one, Indigenous. How many of you like Indigenous? Ooh, a bunch of hands go up. So the majority here is Indigenous. How about online? Online, we have 56% who prefer Native American. This is really interesting. 0 American Indian. And 44% Indigenous. So that's really interesting, right? Okay, I think if you ask my parents the question, the baby boomers and older, I think they would probably say American Indian. So we may have a much younger audience, I'm guessing. All righty, so thank you for participating in that. All right, we're gonna move on to the next question. We're gonna find out what regions you're watching from. So those of you online, what region are you watching from? There are 5 regions that we've decided that you can select from: Northeast, Midwest, Southeast, Southwest, or West. And West is really West Coast. So all those like from California on up to Washington State and some nearby states. And then of course, Southwest is inclusive of Arizona and New Mexico and maybe a couple more states. So do your best. And if you're not sure what region you're in, take a stab at one of those. And of course, in here, we are all mostly from the Southwest, right? Except we've got Susan, who's from the West. Okay, online, Northeast, 9%, Midwest, 13%, Southeast, 17%, Southwest, 26%, and West, 35%. That's pretty good. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so last question. I believe this is the last question. Who has been to a Unity conference before? Let's see in the audience, how many have been to a Unity conference or training? Okay, so about half, maybe a little bit more than half with the advisors. So how many have been to a Unity conference before? And that question will be up shortly for the online audience. And it's a yes or no question. So again, real easy to pick from. 52% have been to a Unity conference and 48% have not. And that's pretty typical. Like when you go to the national Unity conferences, we always ask for a show of hands, and it's a pretty close to half, but tends to be majority, so more than 50% that have not. So a lot of new people who have come to the national Unity conference. So thank you so much once again for joining us. Again, I appreciate all of you. Ahia, Ashont. We're going to go back to Lauren Ashley, who's going to talk about some other things.
Yes. Thank you, Mary Kim. I also want to encourage everybody who's watching online, please continue to insert your questions. It's part of the watch party contest of the Watch and Win raffle. One lucky watch party will actually win 4 free registrations to Orlando, Florida's national conference. So that if you do the math, that's a lot of money that one youth council will really save on registrations. So to be entered into that, if you're hosting a live watch party right now, make sure you enter into the comment section, say I'm watching live with 5 adults, 3 youth from, and then you can put Seminole Tribe of Florida, you can put Iowa Tribe of Oklahoma, you can put Muskogee Youth Council, we know you're out there, Kashada, thank you again for joining us, all of you. So make sure that throughout the presentation, to be entered into this raffle for the watch parties, that you're asking questions to the different presenters. So as we move forward in the day, our amazing co-presidents will actually be taking those questions and making sure our presenters can hear them. All right, so next up, I'm going to invite one of our live youth leaders here in the audience to show an icebreaker. So part of Unity is icebreakers. We always want youth engaged. We want youth leaders up at the front, you know, making sure they're in the forefront. So if you're watching at home, feel free to take notes. One thing we always hear from advisors is, what are some good icebreakers for me to use in my monthly meetings? And so I'm going to turn it over to Summer Lopez, who is the president of the Young River People's Youth Council. And then you're going to be able to see our live audience participate in our awesome icebreaker. So give her a round of applause.
Sklikdash Anyana Chugik Summer Lopez. Hi everyone, my name is Summer Lopez and I'm the president of Young River People's Council here in Salt River, Arizona. And for today's icebreaker, since we don't really know everyone here, we're gonna just do something simple and have everyone introduce yourself, say your age, and one fact about yourself that nobody knows. So if you guys can get up and talk to someone that you don't know.
Yo, what up, Abraham? My name is Abraham. Hey, what's up, man? My name is Adam. I'm 19.
Okay, now that you guys have introduced yourself to someone, do it again, but this time in your best res accent. How long do I stay up here for? Close it. Okay. Okay, everyone. Thank you. You guys can have your seats now.
All right, thanks, guys. Well, we're going to continue on with the program today. If I can have our co-presidents come up, they're actually going to. This is really exciting. Our next section in the agenda are actual virtual breakout sessions. So as soon as our co-presidents come up here, you make sure that you can find the chat box because you'll be seeing some links be posted there. And those links, you can either stay here live with us or the co-presidents are going to explain. You could click on those links and you can go to those different breakout sessions. All right. So everybody, let's give them a round of applause.
All right. So, cool. Man, it's been pretty interesting so far. This, like, overall is something that I think we're all still getting used to, like the fact that all of this is going on online, so it's pretty cool to see. But so for those of you who are just joining us or maybe like hopped in at some point, my name is Joseph Davis. I'm Akimert Altham from the Gila River Indian community here in Arizona, and I'm also the male co-president of the National Unity Council.
Lahayam, hello. My name is Susan Fisher of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, and I'm the female co-president of the National Unity Council.
So once again, we just want to thank everybody who's here, whether it be our live audience or those tuning in at home or at your watch parties, wherever you may be, for the first ever Unity Wellness Warrior virtual conference.
We're very excited to be serving as your co-host today, so get ready for a jam-packed and meaningful event.
So we're going to be ending at 4 o'clock here today. So for the next few hours, what we're going to be doing is, now that we got a few of our speakers out of the way, we're going to be going through a few different breakout sessions. So those are going to be as follows. We're going to have a live feed from Dr. Pearly Elliman, which is for hands-on wellness activities. We're also going to be having a YouTube live feed by Dr. Leslie Locklear on project planning. And the third breakout session is going to be a YouTube presentation from Watson's sister on traditional Navajo foods and teachings. And last but not least, we'll have another YouTube live feed for Leroy NB3 on movement and fitness. So I know I just gave you guys a lot there, but we're going to be updating you guys throughout the day, reminding you about the different sessions that we have going on. But those are going to be the 4 that we're going to have going on for you. So if one of those captures your interest or you want to see what that's about, it's kind of like if we were at an actual venue. You would pretty much go to whichever workshop or whichever activity that you wanted to take part of. So that's what's going to be happening from this point forward, and we will be joining you after that, I believe, unless I'm forgetting anything. Oh, we're good? All right. Get to your workshops. Yeah. Are we still live? Is it still going? Oh, okay. Pearl, oh, I'm sorry. Cool. So one of the breakout sessions is going to be right here, actually. Forgive me, guys. This is the first. But welcoming back, Pearl. Yeah.
Awesome, I'm back. How is everybody doing out there? Huh? Good? All right. If you're tuning in from your community or your school or your campus, can you just take a look around at the folks you're with and the folks you're visiting with and you're hanging out with today, and just take stock of who you're spending today with. Also, if you're with any relatives, to acknowledge your relatives that you're with today. If you're with any friends today, acknowledge your friends. And if you're with any loved ones and family members, to acknowledge your family members at this time. Because on our end here with a virtual conference, it's hard to see who's out there. And it's hard to know who we're communicating with. And that's one of the neat things too about this type of conference. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is I wanted to talk about something that I really had the good fortune of spending some time learning about. And in one of my previous lives, I was a counselor. And one of the things that I would see quite a bit with young people and young teenagers and youth is this thing about boundaries and healthy boundaries. So when I talk about wellness, I think about boundaries. And here's some things to think about. If you have in your life right now, if you can think of a young father or a young mother, think about maybe a cousin you have, or a young relative in your life, maybe a female cousin or a young male cousin, or a relationship that they're in. Think about for a second, when a young mother becomes pregnant, the relationship between the young mother and the young baby. So like, here's the mom. Here's the mom. Here's the baby. Cordell. The relationship between the mother and the baby, when the baby is conceived and the baby is growing in the womb, the baby, that relationship is called attachment. So if you want to write that down, okay? And in fact, if you're taking notes, here's the baby, and you draw the mom on this side, you draw the dad on this side. On this side, the relationship with the mother is called attachment. You can look this up. The other relationship that happens differently between the baby and the father is called bonding. It's called bonding because it happens at a different time. Obviously, as soon as the mother finds out she is pregnant, she has a relationship instantly with that unborn baby. This is something our ancestors knew and practiced for thousands of years. The reason why it's important to me now is because we don't always practice these things right now. Here's what happens to us now. So you have the baby, and then you have the mom, and you have the dad. The relationship between the baby in the middle and the mom here is called attachment. When the baby is born, and everything that the baby needs, think of in your family right now. You might have little nieces and nephews, little tiny babies if you have in your family that you're an aunt or an uncle to, or big sister or big brother to, or maybe even a grandparent. Anytime and every time that that baby cries for several reasons. One, maybe that baby's hungry, or your niece or your nephew, your baby is hungry. Maybe the baby is tired. Maybe the baby is wet and needs to be changed. Or maybe the baby's cold. So it has different types of communications. And the mom, in a healthy attachment, so remember you have attachment and you have bonding. In a healthy attachment, in a healthy home, the mom is supposed to understand the different types of cries. When I was a counselor at the behavioral health building or behavioral health center, I worked with a lot of families. I worked with a lot of young moms, and a lot of young moms would come in frustrated, saying, I don't know why I'm having a hard time with my baby. Sometimes a lot of young moms would say, I can't do this. I want to just give my baby to my mom and let grandma raise my baby. This is really hard for me. How many of you in your own communities know of grandmas raising grandbabies today? I do. I see it. So let me share a little bit more. So I'd see now this magic word called attachment. There's another magic word I want you to pay attention to. It's called attunement. When I think about attunement, I think about like a roller coaster ride. So if a baby is cranky and upset or sad or mad, the baby's kind of going up and down like on a roller coaster. As a young mother, we're supposed to ride that roller coaster with the baby. We're supposed to go up and down with the baby. During that ride, that attunement ride, that's when the mother and the child form a healthy relationship. That's really key when I talk about your boundaries today and my boundaries today. That very first roller coaster ride, that up and down of understanding how we're going to fit each other or fulfill each other's needs, that's the very first relationship we encounter in this world. That first relationship, think back as far as you can think back to your very first relationships with a mother or father, a grandmother or a grandfather. Those very first relationships, they set the paths for all the other relationships we'll have for the rest of our life. That kind of leads us to where we're at today. So here we are, we're up on this up and down called attunement. When a baby needs something, the mother instinctively is supposed to know, how am I going to take care of this baby? Oh, this baby needs milk, or this baby needs changing, or this baby needs, that's attunement. That develops a healthy relationship. If we have friends or cousins or relatives today back home on our reservation who are really struggling to be alcohol or drug free, and they're struggling trying to be a present parent, they're not developing those healthy relationships. Here's what happens to baby. Baby starts to realize, oh, when I cry and this person doesn't respond, or when I cry and I wait a long time, a tiny little baby starts to develop some coping mechanisms. They start to realize, a tiny little baby starts to realize, I get my needs met from that person, but not this person. A tiny baby. A tiny baby can start to say, oh, this person right here helps me survive. I don't really know if this person is helping me survive, right? So that's what starts to build these little blocks around a baby, which now become part of their boundary. You and I have boundaries. Somehow along our life, we've encountered positive relationships. If you're sitting next to somebody that's nice to you, that cares about you, you've developed a healthy relationship and healthy boundary with that person. Sometimes some of our young people get into relationships that maybe mimic or mirror those very first relationships that were difficult. And that compromises our boundaries, like our literally boundaries, like they're protective walls. It compromises our walls. And you're probably like, oh yeah, I know this, I know this, I know this. That's good. Teach somebody who doesn't. You might know it. You might say, oh, I have good communications with my family. I understand respect. And I understand that I can talk to my parent for this reason. Or I can go to this person in my life because I'm hurting and I need help with this problem. That's good if you can. So teach somebody who can't. You can say, you know what, I was sitting in this conference last Friday and this crazy lady was talking about these boundaries and these walls and about riding a roller coaster. But what you can say is, you can say, you know what, those relationships, those very first relationships in your life may have happened, but they don't define you. Here's what defines us now. Is one, how do we rebuild relationships? How do you learn how to rebuild healthy relationships where you really understand, hey man, I know at my age, at 16, this is what I need from these people in my life. Or at 17 or 21, however old we are here. And how do I know how to ask these people in my life for those things? When we talk about healthy relationships, I'm not always talking about, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend goals, wife goals, husband goal. Now I'm talking about the relationship you have with yourself and how you have first relationships and what that means about being healthy. It's like, what do you know about how you communicate what you need? Here's why it's important to me, and here's what I saw as a counselor. I saw a lot of young people not understand that very first relationship and not understand that the importance of that attachment and that bond. I see a lot of young people spend a lot of the rest of their life or a good portion of their life trying to understand or fix that. And in the meantime, they were spending a lot of time with unfulfilled relationships in their life and constantly looking for individuals who could fulfill those two major parts, healthy attachment, healthy bond. That's why I said earlier when I first started, if you're standing next to somebody who's your good friend or a relative or a neighbor and you have a good relationship, honor that. We spend a lot of our times, even adults, we spend a lot of our time trying to figure out what a healthy relationship is. And for you to hear it at this age, she took me this many years to figure that out. I'm this many years old now. It took me a long time. Now I understand. So when I see young people and when I see grandmas raising grandbabies, or when I see mothers frustrated or fathers, and it's both ways. Actually, it was part of a statewide evaluation program through the university, doing a statewide evaluation. The third year of this program, was amazing, the data we got back. It was one of the very first times that tribal communities were seeing young moms leaving their babies. And tribal hospitals were having to create something what they call a safe hospital. A safe hospital on a tribal community is if a mother maybe tested positive for drugs and doesn't, this is a scenario or a situation, or maybe does not have the capability or the ability to care for their child, without a question, she can leave the baby at the safe hospital. So during this evaluation process, we identified more and more tribal hospitals that were utilizing this type of concept. Can you think of our tribal people for thousands of years having that as part of our life? It didn't exist. That's not who we were until just recently that we've encountered things in our social life that now mothers are doing that, and vice versa, fathers too. So when we talk about understanding boundaries, it's about understanding that very first relationship you have with a loved one. And then from there on, understanding how you express need from one another in a healthy way, even from a teacher or from a coach or from an employee or a coworker. That's how it transcends into all these other relationships. So I wanted to talk about that. I want to draw it out. It looks way cooler when I draw it out. But it's some heavy stuff, right? It's really some heavy stuff to kind of think about. And then you think, oh, okay. So look those up. Look them up. Share it. Remember, maybe you already know it. So teach it to somebody else who might not. Maybe you already were thinking about this. Or maybe you already see individuals that have healthy relationships in their life, and you can say, hey, man, I like how you're able to communicate with that person in your life. Teach me how you do that. How does that happen for you? So that's what we're here for, right? To learn from each other. The other thing I wanted to share with you too is, you know, part of Unity has really taught me that you're encountering some new stuff as young people that were not really part of our lifestyle before. And earlier this morning, I was talking about how important it is to eat our healthy food. And I'm just going to kind of end on this. So for thousands of years, our ancestors did not eat hot Cheetos and Piccadillys. And nowhere in the history of our ancestors did our grandparents go hunting for a Piccadilly. And so here's what happens. Okay, so but our ancestors, they did go and hunt. They hunted like wild onions, wild strawberries, wild roots, bitter root. They hunted animals, big game, little game. That's what our ancestors lived on. And for thousands of years, that food or those foods shaped their body, like provided them strength. So then here we come along, us right now, 2019, chilling with hot Cheetos and a Monster or a Red Bull. When you eat right now today, when you eat something that your ancestors ate, my ancestors ate, we ate mutton, all those things. That's what my ancestors ate. When I eat some of those things, I really do feel powerful. Not only do I feel smart and strong, I feel powerful. It literally turns on coping strengths. When you eat something that your ancestors ate, it talks to our bodies the way it talked to our ancestors' bodies 500 years ago. When you eat a hot Cheeto or a Red Bull, it does nothing to our body. It does not turn on any type of survival mechanism at all because our bodies are too new to it, or it's too new to us. But the thing is in 20 years from now, it won't be new, and you don't know what it's going to turn on. You're giving your body time right now to start to read what is in those ingredients. And we just don't know enough about what it's going to be telling our body in 20, 30 years. Does that make sense? Just like fry bread. Fry bread was so good 50 years ago or 60 years ago. Everyone ate fry bread, maybe because it was more of a survival, but we didn't know what it was going to do to our body. Now we know. It only took us about 40, 50 years to know what fry bread was going to do to us. And it's not always good. Our body reads it differently. It might taste good, but it doesn't mean that's good for our body. We don't know what hot Cheetos and Red Bull will do to our body. And why wait 20, 30 years to find out what it's going to do to us? So stay away from Cheetos, hot Cheetos, and Red Bull, or whatever all those drinks are. I'm going to end there because I don't want to be scaring anybody anymore, okay? Here's a virtual hug. Here's a virtual hug to you all. My next workshop will be much livelier. I'm just kidding. It'll be about good times. Okay, I think I'm wrapping up. Am I? All right, awesome.
All right, guys, let's hear it one more time for Dr. Pearly Elliman, please. Okay, so keep in mind we're trying to interact with live audience as well as people who are just logging in. So for those who are sitting in our live audience right now, you might hear us introduce ourselves a few more times. So it's not that we think you're forgetting. It's just to accommodate everybody who's hosting watch parties and has logged in with us. So with that being said, if you are just joining us, my name is Joseph Davis. I'm one of your MCs for the day. For those who don't know, I am Akimadautam. I come from the Gila River tribe here in southern Arizona. And I'm also the male co-president of the National Unity Council. And yeah, that's me.
Tlahayam, hi, my name is Susan Fisher, and I'm a member of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians located in Oregon, and I am the female co-president of the National Unity Council.
So, once again, we have two different audiences. Of course, we have those that are here in the room with us and those that are continually logging in and streaming and witnessing all this happening. So thank you to all of you guys, whether you're here in person or, whether you're hosting a watch party. We really appreciate you taking this opportunity and spending this Friday with us to try and get unity to everybody. So with that, we want to welcome you guys to the first ever Wellness Warrior virtual conference if you're just joining us. So
we're very excited to be serving as your co-host today, so get ready for a jam-packed and meaningful event.
So over the next few hours, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on tackling indigenous approaches to health and wellness. But first, once again, I just want to promote the Wellness Warrior app. So if you haven't downloaded the app, which you should, even if you're not really used to all the specs and everything that it has to offer and navigating through it, download it, see what it's about. I guarantee you'll find something that piques your interest. So check it out, download the app. You probably have the space on your phone. And there's free Wi-Fi here in the building. So we hope that you'll do that today. Take the opportunity, download the app and check it out. Of course, you'll be able to find it on your app store, whether you have Apple, Android, whatever the case may be. And one of the new distinguishing features is that you can actually upload videos and communicate with one another, as well as all of the regular features like a pedometer, a wellness tracker, all that good stuff. So as well as info culturally, so you can share your language, share anything that you pretty much want to share with everybody within the Unity network and even outside of it. So download the app. Whether you're in here in the building or you're watching from home, wherever you may be, check out the app and you won't regret it. I promise you that. So
This virtual conference is interactive, so make sure to comment in the chat box with any questions for each presenter. And don't forget that you can win prizes, so be on the lookout for big code words to win big.
So yes, we are doing prizes. We figured out a way to do that. So the prizes will include Skoden t-shirts, Unity Pendleton, the biggest one, which is National Unity Conference registration, which is a lot of money for all those youth councils that have to fundraise and do everything they can year round in order to get there. You know that means a lot, especially if there's any advisors listening or watching, I should say. That's probably music to your ears, the opportunity to score some free Unity registration. So be ready for that. Plenty of prizes today, and it's based off of participation. So you'll have to watch and listen for your opportunity to win, and you'll listen for the secret code word, which we don't have a code word yet. Is Skoden? All right. The secret code word is Skoden, but that's a test. We're testing it out. Yeah.
So first up, we have youth presenters ready to discuss resolutions, how to host your own Wellness Warrior event.
So next, we are going to be hosting a panel where, yeah. So if we have, see, we can give a little bit of time. I wish MC1 was here to play music. I feel like he plays a crucial role in that, like as people are like walking up to our stage. So yeah, MC1 is definitely underrated in that regard.
We don't have to
grab the whole thing.
I guess.
Does it like, will it reach?
It's taped.
It's taped.
Wait, can I like take this side? I don't know how it works. Josh?
So with that,
How do we take the microphone? Okay, it's
I
like
think we're gonna.
Thanks, so guys, so much. Yeah, if you can get ready for our next panel.
All right. Perfect.
So next up, we have some amazing community leaders. Jolana Begay will actually be joining us shortly, but we do have Dr. James writing in here, and he is actually a professor here at Arizona State University, and I'm kind of fangirling because I really loved taking Dr. Writing-in's class. It was my favorite. Hopefully he doesn't remember my homework scores, but I really did read, I promise. I read your works. So we have, if you at home have any questions from the audience, feel free to type them in the chat box, and then we'll write them down so that our moderators can ask these questions to Dr. James Writing-in. And then Jolana Begay is actually in the building, and she'll be joining us shortly, hopefully. So go ahead, if anybody here in the live audience has any questions, feel free, and you guys can come up and ask them, okay? So I'm going to turn it over. There you go, Joe.
Do you have another copy of the moderating questions? Alright. I'm on the wrong side. Oh. Oh, right. So, So, once again, we are going to be doing a panel discussion. We want to keep it as interactive as we can for those at home as well as those here. If you have any questions whatsoever, part of the advantage is it's a little bit smaller of an audience, so I know some people are a little bit more intimidated with the big audience. So with that, any questions, comments, feel free to fire them off and we'll open the floor for that. So we're going to be discussing approaches to wellness. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and kick off our first question, which is, many people use the word, but not a lot of people understand it. In your own words, how would you define decolonization in your own cultural framework?
I'd like to begin by thanking you for inviting me to be a part of this presentation. And I've seen some students from my past years here. One, I understand, is called Mama Pino, where she works, and I tortured her with many of my courses a few years back. So it's great seeing her again. She was one of those students who made a lasting memory with me, as others. So get to know your professors as you're going through college, and you'll find out that we are great mentors most of the time. But this topic is so timely about decolonization and wellness. So the way that I define decolonization is first understanding what colonization means from my own cultural context. I'm a Petahawidat Pawnee from Oklahoma. I've been here at Arizona State University since 1990. I was one of the founders of the American Indian Studies program. And one of the reasons we founded American Indian Studies was because of the way that Indian issues have been taught in universities and other educational entities. It's not a very good job that's been done. So, we need our own program to teach history, to teach culture, to teach sovereignty, and to teach about the past in accurate ways that reflect the present. And that's what decolonization means to me, as I mentioned before, understanding colonization. Like many other people, the Pawnees, we were deeply connected to our land, and we still are. Our ceremonies, our language, our worldview, our understanding of place was all connected to land. But then came European colonization, the invasion of white America, and it disrupted our ways of life. They came to this hemisphere seeking resources to exploit or to steal, land to steal, and labor to exploit as well. So we faced all these situations: land loss, depopulation through diseases, through warfare, and through the disruptions of our traditional economies. Then we experienced coercive assimilation. The plans of the United States government was to assimilate us into dominant society, whether we wanted to be assimilated or not. And we had our own worldview. We had our own ways of doing things. We had our own philosophers who mapped out our future existence. And colonization disrupted those processes, those traditional processes. They impacted our sovereignty. How many of you know what sovereignty means? Give me a definition of sovereignty.
To be able to self-govern.
That's a part of it, yeah. But it's an inherent power that comes from within a group of people to govern themselves in accordance with their own values, beliefs, or even to adopt another form of government. Its ability to regulate land, to make and enforce laws, to regulate land use, to determine membership, to make war, to make peace, and the list goes on and on. So part of the colonization process was to reduce our sovereignty, to erode our sovereignty. And this was done through treaties, it was done through acts of Congress, and it was done through Supreme Court decisions. So along with facing depopulation, coercive assimilation, which included boarding schools, which is a big topic today, the reduction of our sovereignty, the loss of our land, it had a tremendous impact on our well-being. And we're still feeling the effects of that today. So when we talk about decolonization, it doesn't mean, as they say, going back to the blanket, although that's probably not such a bad idea sometimes. That's what these white American assimilationists referred to it as, going back to the blanket, is returning to tradition. But we have to face reality. We're living in a different world now. And so we want to continue in this world in accordance with our own values, beliefs, and understandings of reality. So that's what that term means to me. And that's the way that we can heal ourselves from the historical trauma that still impacts our people today.
All right. Well, Well, thank you very much for that, Dr. James writing in. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are actually joined as well by Dr. Joylana Bigay-Krupa. With that, I will go ahead and restate the first question that we got started off with, and then if you could kindly introduce yourself as well. So many people use the word, but not a lot of people understand it. In your own words, how would you define decolonization in your own cultural framework?
Thank you. Altae nihit adehodesin adenek eche she trachini nishle do tsnajini e bashichin ashche dashiche do ye etane trachini dashanale ado she Jolana Bigay Kropa Yenishia akut ego e shahodilzin she tsahotso de nasha ado she Denebazad Nilinigi Nasyit Nisingo Shananish Nat. So what I shared with you was the 4 clans that I use to identify who I am as a Dene Navajo woman. I come from the Red Running Into the Water People clan. I am born for the Black Streak Wood People. Those are my fathers. My maternal grandfathers are my 3rd clan, and they're the Red Bottom Cheek People clan. Then I belong to the giant people of the Red Running Into the Water People clan. They're my 4th clan, and I get that clan from my paternal grandfathers, so my dad's dad. Those 4 clans identify who I am and where I come from. They're much more important than my English given name, which is Jolana Bigay Kropa. And I shared in my language that those clans were given to me before I even took my first breath. They identify who I am, where I come from, they're my foundation. And in identifying my clans, I recognize my elders, those that were before me. And then I shared that I am an instructor of language of Denebizad, and I do this work because I want to ensure the existence of Denebizad, which is the Navajo language. I am an instructor here at Arizona State, so I've been a Denebizad teacher now for over 10 years here at ASU. And then I also do some work at Stanford. So there's a group of students that I log on with 2 times a week over in Palo Alto. Most of them are Navajo students. And we work on carrying this language into the future because it's our job. And so that's a little bit about who I am and where I come from. And I want to thank you for having me here today. I'm very excited and very honored to be here. And so when we talk about decolonization, so Dr. Wrightington couldn't have put it any better than I think anyone. I mirror a lot of what he says in that, to me, decolonization is first and foremost about understanding what that even means. So to understand what decolonization is, you have to understand what colonization is. And so a lot of the history of what happened to us as American Indian people, a lot of that understanding helps you to then better understand decolonization. So here at ASU, the American Indian Studies program is a great avenue that where I gained a lot of what I know about what happened to American Indian people, and why it's important to understand that history to shape where you're going to go in the future. So when it comes to my passion, which is language revitalization, I believe that this decolonization is a true avenue that we as current day Native people can explore even more. And what I mean by that is, in Navajo, you would say, and what that means is, if you truly embrace and you truly identify who you are, in my case as a Navajo person, then your future, your path moving forward is a little more clear. You're really able to embrace both your native heritage, but then also accepting reality in that we live in a world now where the dominant culture, we have to, we have to set ourselves up so that we walk in both worlds. And if you know your language, then you know the culture. You're better able to develop a stable foundation, a firm foundation. And in doing so, you then are able to really acknowledge the teachings of our ancestors, because their teachings are real. They've carried us for many, many generations. And unfortunately, because of what's, the two worlds that we have to walk in, finding that balance is really important. And we have been on this path where we're really dropping a lot of our language, our songs, our prayers. And so when we think about decolonization, it's finding a way to implement that back into our lives in this world right now, right? We can't go completely back. It's not reality, but it's finding a way to balance the two. So in my opinion, I feel like that's a huge part of what that word means. And as an instructor of language, when we talk to our young people now, a lot of young people are really starting to embrace this at, I think, an early age. So when I was growing up, there were many that, that didn't speak Navajo in my community, where about 95% of our classmates were Navajo. There wasn't many that spoke Navajo, and those that did were kind of labeled, right? We were labeled as, rural, those rural Navajos in my case. And so we kind of wanted to stay away from that label, and then that added to us not really wanting to learn our language. Now I feel like when I work with young people, they're wanting it even more. They're hungry about how to introduce yourself and what that means. What's the story of my clan, and how important is it to me? So when we are learning language, when we are studying our Denebizad in my classroom, our young people are hopeful because they're really beginning to express why it's important, we know. And in doing so, they're also taking perspectives of, being in an urban setting is an added piece to, I need to learn who I am because I'm not surrounded by elders like, if I were on the reservation. And so my point is that I think that young people are really starting to move toward a positive direction in reclaiming, embracing, being excited about who they are as a Navajo person. And in doing that, they're more able to take the initiative to speak Denebizad. So that's a little bit about, how I think decolonization has a role in the work that I do, and then what that word means altogether. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Begay Krupa. The next question we have is for Dr. Wrightington. How have you addressed decolonization in your career as a professor and advocate for protecting sacred sites?
Before I address that question, I'd like to announce that we're working in American Indian Studies to offer the Autumn language to be taught here at ASU next fall. First time ever, we're in the Autumn homeland and it's never been taught. And we're, one of our master students, Jeremy Johns from Ak Chen, graduated, and he has said he can do the course, but he's been accepted into a PhD program out of state, so he may have to do it online, or we'll have to find someone to do an on-ground class. So if you're interested in the Autumn language, I encourage you to see when it's being offered and enroll, especially if you're from one of the 4 Autumn groups here in Arizona. But I've been involved through much of my adult life in the issues of repatriation and the protection of sacred sites. How many of you know what repatriation is? Okay, it's what it means is to getting cultural items and human remains back. And I know that this is a taboo subject to some of you, but for others of us it's not. But there's a history behind this, and that's another part of the colonization that went on, and that was the looting of Indian graves and taking human remains and placing them in museums, not only here in this country but around the world. And it was done for purpose of study. First, it was to prove the superiority of the white race by measuring brain size. So that's what they were using crania for. The theory was that the people with the largest heads were the most intelligent. So according to that theory, who's the most intelligent people in this room? Us men, right? Wrong. We like to think we are at times, I guess, but it's just not that way. But these were flawed theories. So this was a part of that history. The United States government became involved in the collecting of Indian crania through the U.S. Army, decapitating individuals who were killed in battle, and also looting of graves. And it was also repatriation, as getting back cultural items, referred to as objects of cultural patrimony. And these are items that are considered central to a people's history, culture, and identity. And also sacred objects or sacred items. And sacred items are items that are used in ongoing religious ceremonies. So there was a history to suppress our cultures, to deny us our right to worship in our traditional ways. Our choice of religious freedom was to become one of the Christian groups. We could not maintain our Indianness. If you saw a medicine man, if you participated in ceremonies, you could go to jail if you're convicted. So courts were set up on reservations to enforce what's called the codes of Indian offenses. And these were in place until the 1930s. So the other plan was to take away our connection to the land, to brainwash our people through coercive education, through boarding schools, by beating our parents who spoke their languages, our grandparents, when they were in these schools, washing out their mouths with soap, putting them in solitary confinement, things like this. Then impose Christianity upon us. So, you know, sometimes our Christianized Indians get a little upset with us for talking about these issues, but it's a part of that history we have to understand, and we cannot deny it. So I've served as an expert witness in a couple cases related to religious freedom. One is a hair case out of Texas, and you know, for many of us, long hair is sacred, and also protection of sacred sites as an expert witness in the Snowball case also. So I try to use the knowledge that I obtain through my life experiences and through my educational experiences to combat and to challenge these racist attitudes that deny us human rights, because we are talking about human rights. Our cultures are just as valid as any other cultures of this world, and we have a right to practice our cultures without fear of repercussions.
Thank you. So our next question is for Dr. Bigay Krupa. How have you addressed the concept of wellness through your hard work and language revitalization?
Thank you for that question. So I mentioned that I work at ASU and I teach the Nebazad, and then also work at Stanford and work with some students there. And then I also have an additional role, and my role is working at a nonprofit called the Phoenix Indian Center, where we do have a Navajo language and culture program. So I'm involved in multiple areas, working on language revitalization efforts. And so I really feel to answer this question, I can just provide an example of usually what happens in our classroom. So when we get a new semester starts and a new group of students come into Navajo language, right away when they enter the room and take their seats, they look around the room and they see other Navajo classmates, and there's already this environment that this environment that's created where the comfort level is a little better. So they'll, sometimes somebody might wear perhaps a t-shirt or a jacket from maybe their high school they attended, and they'll say like, oh, are you from Tuba City? There's always a bunch of Tuba City students in at ASU Western, lots of Western people. So they begin to have conversations, right around the beginning of the semester in fall. It's fair time on Navajo land. So students, are you going to go back to the fair? Are you going to go home? And so they get this, they build relationships right away from the very beginning. In Denebizad, we start off our class always by talking about K'e. So K'e is a really important kinship. Kinship among Navajo is very important, right? Identifying your relatives. Who's your auntie? Who's your cousin? Where are you from? You identify your elders in that way. So we start off talking about self-introduction, and then at the end of that class, usually students, they'll find a relative, they'll find an auntie, or else I'll be their masane, or sometimes by clan, they are my grandma and I'm their granddaughter. So we build these relationships with each other, and that is wellness. That's that idea of I have relatives, I'm in a safe space. We are working through this journey of learning language together. They embrace each other as relatives, and we try to use those kinship terms. So I say, don't use your Balagana name. Don't use your English given name. Moving forward, you'll address me as that kinship term. If I'm your grandma, you'll call me Shamasane, or if I'm your granddaughter, you'll call me Shitsui every time you see me. Now, don't call me by my English name. And students start to feel good about that because they have a relative. Then throughout our language journey, we're talking about various different things that are important and significant to us, whether or not we're on Navajo land or learning about it here in Tempe, right? So we explore topics such as food. We have relationships with always eating something centered around chiyan at the table. That's also wellness. So we talk about, well, what do you do if you visit your grandma? Are you going to go empty-handed, or are you going to take something? So they start to build these teachings and values that are important to them. So there was an instance where a student said, she identified to me as auntie. So she said, Shemayaja, on my last trip to my grandma, I took a 12-pack of Shasta Cola and a bag of flour and some tissue because she always wants, Kleenex. Now I'm never going to visit my elder empty-handed, even if I take something small. That was a teaching we talked about. That's how we give back. That's how we pay respect. And so she said, I felt really good about that. I felt really good about that teaching. That's all part of wellness. And so in Navajo, you would say, all of those teachings, all of those connections we have that make who we are, make us feel good. And then when we speak Navajo, sometimes they'll say, oh, my mouth feels really funny after we did all these different sounds. And so I'll say, that's because we're using muscles that we don't normally use when we speak English, right? So sounds like is real hard to make in Navajo, but we practice and practice. Or when we're trying to learn the TS sound in Navajo, which is k. So I'll try to do it again, say k, k. And we'll practice. So by the end of our session, they're like, oh, the muscles, I'm talking all funny. So we feel good. And then we'll say, language is therapy. Just by speaking it, the power and the beauty of Denebazad alone, that's wellness. That's really making you feel good about who you are, about where you come from, and about where you're going to go. So I'll tell them, if you've made it this far, before you know it, you're going to be having that conversation with your grandma who only speaks Navajo. And so we talk about, teachings like, nobody's going to make you get there, only you will get there. So all of that is incorporating that wellness, and that's what we incorporate and embed when we're working on our language journey.
Oh, we have a question in the audience.
So you have diversity in your classroom, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Is it kind of difficult to deal with people that don't know the culture and for them to just learn a new way of life of like respecting certain things they never respected before?
That's a really great question. And yes, so majority of the time, about 90 to 95% of students taking Navajo both at Stanford ASU are Dene people, Dene students, Dene students attending. There are occasions where we will work with students who are non-Navajo. And so it's an opportunity. I utilize that as an opportunity for those in the classroom to help them experience what it's like to grow up on reservation, what certain things mean. So I allow them to become the experts. And they in turn really kind of embrace that and feel like, okay, well, I can explain what a chi is, right? So that's an example. So one time we were having a conversation about food that makes us feel good. And we were talking about, because in Navajo we have a delicacy called a chi, which is, it sounds funny in English, but it's really sheep fat and sheep intestines that you make. There's a certain way you make it and a certain way you cook it. So we're explaining to our non-Navajo students what this is, and they didn't sound good to them, but it was the way in which we talked about. It's about carrying on those traditions of the ways that you make this food, why it's important. Well, we don't just throw things away when our elders have taught us that we utilize everything. And this treat is something you don't have all the time, but when you do, you're usually having it at like a special time. So we're explaining to them what it means, where it comes from, why it's important, and they're picking up. So many times we have to remind ourselves, oh, they don't know what that means, so let's take a step back and talk to them about what it is. And so I've never had a student enroll that wasn't respectful to our ways, and so we're respectful to them as well by allowing them the opportunity to learn more about who we are.
Thank you.
I've been teaching American Indian Studies here at Arizona State University since the late 1900s, and about 20, almost 30 years now. And before that, and Justice Studies along the way. So we have a number of non-Indian students who take our class, especially our American Indian Studies classes, the lower divisions. Sometimes about half of the class is non-Indian. And oftentimes they don't know this history that we teach them because the schools have done a miserable job of teaching correct history. What we get is a whitewash version of history. Indians are presented superficially, usually, if at all, and some of the more unsavory parts of the history are not even taught. So we challenge them to think about the history of this country. Most of them can accept what we're talking about or trying to teach them, but others don't. But usually they don't say too much. But so I like it when I have students in class who will challenge what I'm saying because it stimulates discussion. And I think it opens minds even further if they can throw out some of these questions that they are unaware of. And a lot of our native students don't know that history either because it's not being taught at home and they didn't receive it in the schools either. So by and large, though, the native students are much more receptive to accepting this type of history that we teach than the non-native. Although I don't want to stereotype and say again that a lot of them, they don't get it, they do. And a lot of them are very concerned, they care about what happened and they want to see history taught right.
When you teach about the history of Native Americans, do you use ethnic cleansing or do you use genocide?
So I think from language learning perspective, so we have to always, in Navajo, we talk about how what exits your mouth has to always try to be positive. And so they say, "Hatso eitzotizin," so your tongue is prayer. And so you want to utter nothing but positivity. And language learning, yes, there's a lot of the reality, the history that's not so pretty. Like for example, when we talk about long walk, it's a sad time for our people, and there are a mixture of feelings from elders to adults, even to our youth, about ways in which, should that be discussed? Should we even have a conversation about it? That's a hard time for us. We don't need to visit that. So I think as an instructor, I'm careful on how we approach it, but we also do share some of the real parts of history that are not so happy, but we also always try to stay positive and utter things that, like our language is important to us, and what our elders would say and what they have been saying for us to be where we're at today.
Yeah, these are two important concepts in American Indian studies. The way I see ethnic cleansing is a part of genocide, and the way I conceptualize ethnic cleansing is an attempt to get rid of the indigenous population, to remove them. That was the primary weapon of choice used by the U.S. government because it was cheaper to remove Indians than it was to kill them. But the genocide, we have to understand that. And genocide, the way I define it, is looking at the 1948 UN Convention on Genocide, and it means the killing of people. That's one part of it. It also means the attempts to destroy culture. It means causing mental harm to people. It means taking children and placing them in another environment. So genocide is more than just going out and killing people off. It's attempts to eradicate culture, to harm people. So yes, we do look at genocide as as something that we're recovering from. Ethnic cleansing. My people were originally from Nebraska, and we were removed to Oklahoma. And if you understand Oklahoma history, there was probably about 3 or 4 tribes or nations that were indigenous to Oklahoma, but now there's 39 different groups there. Why? Because Oklahoma was a dumping ground, a place to remove Indians, to get them out of way of white society, and that is ethnic cleansing.
Thank you for that. So we just wanted to ask all the speakers up here, when we have an audience question, if we could repeat it into the mic. Our live audience is having a little trouble hearing the audience questions, but we'll go over to Susan for your guys' next question.
Maybe Ms. Kropa can share with us if, since there's potentially several hundreds of people listening virtually, and to the young people, if they wanted to start something at their tribal college or in their area or their community, you might have some tips as to how you got started. started and how you advocated for starting these language classes.
Do you want to repeat the question or should I? Oh, God.
So there was a question about what are some ways for many of our young people to really start the work of saving their language or working on language journeys in their communities. And so she also asked that I share a little bit about how I got started, right? And so for me, my story is it began in the setting that I was in. So I grew up on the res, and I was very fortunate to be a part of language on a daily basis. Navajo was primarily spoken in my home, so I had that advantage. And then I moved off the reservation, where then I was taken away and it was no longer there. But that's not the same opportunity for many of our communities. So there are lots of communities where they don't hear their heritage language on a daily basis. And so how would they go about trying to learn it, and ways to start these classes? So I would say one of the things that I really try to work toward now is the use of technology. So what we're doing right now, this having this panel discussion and allowing the opportunity for those across the country to be a part of this without actually being in the room, is utilizing that technology. And so Dr. Wrightington talked about Jeremy, he actually took the Nebazad. He took Navajo language, and he is an O'odham speaker. So he's studying right now at U of A, but he's wanting to teach perhaps here at ASU while being a student there. The work that I do in Palo Alto at Stanford, so I work from here, from Arizona. So I don't go there 2 days a week, but I log on with the students. So they're sitting just like you in a room together, and then I come up on a big screen, and there's someone there who kind of helps facilitate the students live. But we're able to interact live together. So if they have a question, they raise their hand, and I'll hear them, and we interact together. So that's a great way to, if you're thinking about what could we do, perhaps you have a fluent speaker in your community, or you have an elder that's willing to share about your language or cultural storytelling. It would be perhaps connecting them virtually and then allowing others in the community to log on. There is the percentage, there's a high percentage, what is it? I think it's around 76% that live off, right? It's right around there. So many Native people now live off their original homelands, and that's just going to grow even more and more. And so finding ways maybe to connect with elders back home using technology, I think, is a great way to incorporate it. Yes, so there are a lot of foundations, and there's language grants that are allowing this to happen. And so maybe connecting with your local nonprofit or your local tribal college, go to their language department and ask them to help you seek foundations or grants, even federal funding that will allow this to happen. So great question. Would I be willing to host a language revitalization grant session at PIC? Yes. Oh, of course. That's a great idea. I think it's a wonderful way for us to really try to work together. And yes, I would totally be on board with that. Awesome idea.
And our last question is actually going to come from someone who's online. How do you keep wellness and identity a priority when you experience stereotypes from professors and students in university classrooms?
Yeah, I'd like to add something to what was just said. Her commitment to language retention and revitalization is just something to hold in awe, And many of us in Oklahoma, we were hit really hard with language loss. So we're trying to restore Pari Pakuru. That's our language. That's how we say it. And you know, it was being taught at in kindergarten or Head Start, but that funding has been cut. So we had a situation where some of our younger kids knew more Pawnee than their parents did, which is, you know, seems kind of odd, but that's just the reality of things. And we're trying to keep it, make it a part of Pawnee Nation College, which I'm on the board of trustees, and be writing a grant for that purpose here in the near future. But the question was identity.
How do you keep wellness and identity a priority when you experience stereotypes from professors?
Yeah. Yeah. I think most Native students have probably faced stereotypes in classrooms. You know, like one of the stereotypes is that all Indians go to college free. Nonsense. That Indians live richly because of the federal government. Nonsense. That Indians are gaming rich. You know, there are a few groups are, but most of us don't get anything from gaming, if we have gaming at all. So we have to educate, and we cannot let these negative stereotypes get us down. You know, you have to turn to yourself, decolonize yourself. That decolonization makes you proud. It makes you strong. It's healing, and it enables you to confront these attitudes. Sometimes these are very racialized attitudes as well. So know who you are, know where you come from, know where you want to go as an Indigenous person, and then you can deal with these situations.
And so I would say to answer that question, so it does come up, you know, there are, we're the minority always in institutions like ASU, and especially institutions like Stanford. There's a handful of the NEST students that are really trying to, you know, pave a way for themselves. And so sometimes there will be some frustration. So I have a student who talked about, you know, he has long hair, and even when it comes to talking over and over about why he has long hair and what it means, and he has sons who have long hair. So here and there he'll become frustrated, and that's natural. Of course, you're going to start to you know, have to repeat yourself, and it'll get kind of annoying. But when I run the classes, we always try to come back to why we're doing what we're doing. So why are we, you know, taking time to sit here and learn? And it's not to fulfill a credit. We always get that out of the way. No, it's not to fulfill a credit, but it's really to embrace who you are. And if you can do that, and you build that foundation, that solid foundation, these types of, you know, stereotypical comments or, you know, questions that come your way, you're going to be better off handling as you move forward. And so we always remind, like, you know, how would I respond that would make my community proud? Or what would my mom say? How would my grandma respond to this? These are some things that we try to talk about in order for them to stay in that positive mindset when addressing. But it's also, like Dr. Writing had said, about educating. So it is our job, it's our duty to share, because we're the minority. Who else is going to do it for us? Are we still going to rely on these textbooks to illustrate, you know, a version of us that's not really true? No, that's our job. And by doing that, educating others, but also being accountable, and that means really being a speaker, really being true to who you are and where you come from. And if that's how you do it, by learning language to accomplish that, then you're doing the right thing. You're being accountable and you're working your way toward it. Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for our panel. Let's get a round of applause for Dr. Writing and Dr. Brigade Krupa. Thank you so much. So on behalf of Unity, we wanted to give you these nice flags so you can help us represent. And yeah, from the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate you coming out and sharing your thoughts. And hopefully igniting something within all the youth, not only in this room, but everybody that's watching nationwide. And we just really, really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. So thank you very much for that. One more round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
One of the things I like about Unity is the message of sobriety. Be sober. I've been sober well over 30 years. Alcohol is, there are spirits in those bottles, they're negative spirits. They make you feel good and they will kill you.
Helpful.
All right. Well, Skikdash, Ani Lance Sanchez, ni Anja Safari Chukshon, Tanat Nation. Hello, my name is Lance Sanchez. I am from the Safari District on Tanat Nation, a student here at Arizona State University. Again, that was a really interesting discussion on decolonizing approaches to wellness. So right now, for those listening, please, I'll be giving you code words for you can enter into the chat box and you'll be entered into the raffle. So the first code word for the Pendleton blankets are curtains, because you know we as Indians like to use curtains as blankets as curtains. And then the next one for the t-shirts is Skoden. So make sure you enter that into the chat box and you'll be entered into the raffle. So right now for the audience here, we're gonna do some stretches real quick, get you up and out of your chairs, and yeah, come on now. Now you guys are tired, but interesting discussions all around. Hands up if you guys want. Yeah, all right. And then swing side, the other side. All right. Let's do what you want with your arms. Okay, so guys, give you another quick 2 minute break. And also for those listening, or sorry, viewing, make sure we'll be sending out a survey after this is over, and make sure you fill that out as well. So right now, we'll also be going into the next one, how youth councils can create their own Wellness Warrior event. So first off, we're going to show a video on how that, with the local youth councils, Young Rivers People Council, and the future inspired Native American leaders.
This was an event that was in the planning about 2 years ago. Salt River Youth Council and Phoenix Indian Center, and we got together with them and we decided to do an event for the youth out here in the community and outside the community in the Phoenix Valley area.
It means to me that it's really good that we're promoting wellness in our community. It's a necessary thing in life.
This is such an important mission. This is such an important effort that they're endeavoring on. And I'm just so excited to be here today with all of the youth from Salt River who worked really hard to put this event on and who took time out of their weekend to come here and focus on health and wellness for the future of their community.
And I think it's important kids take notice of these things and try to take action into planning things like this for our people. They're the next leaders.
All of these Native youth came out today in support of not only the Young Rivers People Council, but the Final Youth Council as well, because they are making a big impact within our communities to help our future generations learn the importance of what it means to be healthy and to live a healthy lifestyle.
I think one of the most important parts of our life is to make sure that we're taking care of our bodies and taking care of ourselves physically and mentally.
And it's just as simple as getting out and moving around, and the fact that we have our traditional games still here with us today is very important for us to learn, because it's not only teaching us about fitness, but as well as our culture.
We set up the same games as we have here today with the traditional games and a couple modern games. Behind me, they're doing the Shongi wood, which is the Autumn men's traditional game. On the right side of me, they're playing Taka, which is the Autumn girls traditional game. And then on the far left, they're playing double ball. It's kind of the same thing like Taka, but they play differently. And inside, we just have a regular American basketball. And all of our communities, we have diabetes and dialysis and everything else, all these other sicknesses.
As we know that the health is something that we're struggling with, and I'm glad that the youth is taking the initiative to put health in the spotlight. But our people have always been in good health, and so I'm really happy that our young people are taking it upon themselves to do functions to bring awareness about our health. And so this is a good place to have it at too here at the Way of Life Center.
I feel really inspired by all of the youth that showed up today.
For me to be a wellness warrior,
I think it's just to try to live in your ancestors' shoes as best as you can. Being the warriors they once were, the respectful men they once were, honoring our women.
As warriors, we represent a people, we represent a community.
Just being active, not sitting on the couch watching TV or texting on my phone on the bed. Just you got to get out there and do something.
Try to live how they lived.
Yacht she a Kilimige and share, Shake dosh at the net, she a Kilimige and share, Ocean National Kitchen Bastin, Tots and a dashate do clash to its snelle, Artia got the name Snare, Shama a Krinamonica wallet or Shizet Derbigay wallet. My name is Kaden Bigay. I am Navajo. I am a senior at Washington High School here in Phoenix. I am the president of the Future Inspired Native American Leaders Youth Council. So I'll go ahead and have the other people, members, introduce themselves.
Skukta Shaniana Chugik Summer Lopez. Hi everyone, my name is Summer Lopez. I'm 16 and I am a junior at Westwood High School and I'm the president of the Young River People's Council here in Salt River, Arizona.
Skukta Shaniana Chugik Tegan Smith. Good day everyone, my name is Tegan Smith. I am 15 years old and a sophomore at Westwood High School.
Dagotashi, Surya Taylor Jose, Tudatla, and Shli Lo Klabashin, Shatak Clay, Shamat Lao Clay, and Denise Taylor Sands Jose, Christine Rita Clay, Danny Taylor Senior Jose. Hi, I'm Surya Taylor. I'm a junior at Prairie High School in White Mountain Apache in Navajo.
Wamana young Osanayana Hopi Matsua. Hello, I'm Samuel Redbird. I'm Hopi Maricopa and Thonatham. I go to Towson High School and I'm the chair of the Wellness Committee of the Future Inspired Native American Leaders Youth Council.
So we'll be starting off with a quick history about how the New Year's resolution came to be. So starting off, like owning up to leadership. So that's like persuading or introducing yourself, as well as direct, escort, persuade, advance into something into like a common goal setting. And that's really what leaders contribute to towards like the wellness committee and as well the Young River People's Council, going into taking that leadership and owning up to having the second annual of a New Year's resolution wellness day that took place recently, less than 3 months ago, which was on January 26, 2019. So once again, this is a second annual. So throughout the years since the beginning, we collaborated with the Future Inspired Native American Leaders Youth Council, along with the Young River People's Youth Council. Sorry. So we worked together in order for this to happen. We hosted the event with the other council in order to enrich where we came traditionally, as well traditional grounds. We work with Tribal Youth Council and as well with who we are at the Future Inspired American Leaders Youth Council as an urban setting. So this is what we really dedicated towards. So it's a really great event for our youth to anticipate in. So during our second annual, we had over 175 youth, parents, and chaperones in order to come together and start completing a common goal.
So what started off this event is the final youth council came to socialize and just have a meeting with our youth council. We just ate food together and shared of how our meetings went. And during our meeting, one of their youth council members brought up an event that they wanted to host, which was the Resolution Day event, and they explained like the basis of what they wanted it to be, like something that introduces wellness but healthiness, but also sticking to your tradition. So one of our youth council members came up with the idea that we should collaborate together and work on this project together, and that's how we did this.
So why we decided to hold this event was because
81% of adults are obese and 45% of children 2 to 5 are obese. In many Native communities, childhood obesity exceeds to 50%, and in some communities, 60%.
So about 50% of Native American children are most likely to have type 2 diabetes, and um, in the future, it's highly likely that almost all Native children will have diabetes, and that's why wellness um, events like these are extremely important, because in order for that to change, we need to make different things happen, and that involves events like these because it gets kids more interested in like learning more about their health and their traditions at the same time. So,
So one thing I would like to add, so as a future cardiothoracic surgeon, potentially through the University of Arizona, one thing that really obtains towards us as Native people is basically how we are obese, and as well we have the unintentional injuries which could be caused by drinking, smoking, that could really complicate with our health. As well, a number one thing is the cardiopulmonary health issues, as well with our heart disorders. That is a really main thing that we are focusing as Native youth. As well, the majority of the Native population is suffering, and that's what we're trying to lead here towards the Wellness Day in order to incorporate health and awareness.
so passing it off to President Summer Lopez and Chairman Samuel Redbird, they're gonna talk about how the event came to be.
So some of the steps that we took to like actually make this event happen is, once we like decided we are gonna bring it on again, we had weekly conference calls talking about the same things or changing a few aspects here. And so, bringing people in or aspects to the event to actually make it happen. So we decided to bring in speakers, motivational speakers to, empower and motivate all the youth that we wanted to bring in for the wellness event, so they could actually feel empowered and want to do something after that. And they could hear it from someone who went through, someone who hit rock bottom, because that's what a lot of them were. And then also, we'd have like a health fair. So, have organizations that brought their set up tables, shared resources, and gave information to everyone that could lead them to live a healthful life and stay away from the negative stuff like drugs and alcohol and everything like that.
Throughout the event, we had different breakout sessions, and these breakout sessions we had different types of sports and games, and we had games such as Shangivu. So that's like a men's traditional game, and it's a lot of running involved, so it's a lot really healthy for people to do. And we had Thaka, which is like a woman's traditional game. It's like hockey in the desert for us Atum people, and it's really fun. There's a lot of energy that has to be used with it, a lot of running, and we also had stickball. Is that what it's called? Double ball, and I think that's just for boys, right? And that's also a lot of energy being used with that game. And we also had basketball for those of the youth that enjoyed playing basketball. So it was a lot of energy being used that day. We learned a lot, but we also done a lot of physical stuff that day. So it was very fun, and I think all the youth really enjoyed it.
So another, oh my gosh. So leading out So leading out to that, we probably work together as this is our second year on set again. Basically, we learned about what we did in like professionals as well as youth as in the Native community. We learn majority of like beneficial aspects. So one thing I learned basically about the beneficial about it would be leadership skills, and as well the promotion of that we took leadership into promoting the Wellness Day. So that's like one thing we really focus on, the communication and leadership.
And this event, we got like a lot of people to show up, 175 youth from around the community. And this is all just youth led. And so it's something that anyone could do within their own communities. So I really recommend that you guys learn more of what resources you have in your communities and try to find out how you can keep everyone involved.
So this is my first year bringing out being in the council, and I took the chair position. And just a little insight for me. The first resolution, the first annual that they had was actually the first event that I had attended that had to do with youth councils or anything. Fast forward this another year, I'm on the council and I was the chair. So I was kind of like I was like, I don't want to say the main, but I was really involved with the planning efforts of what was going on. And they did a good job that previous year because with the speakers, bringing in the right speakers, having the day set up and everything for me to actually, want to get involved with that. So, and if I think if you guys continue it or do what we did, you'll have the opportunity to empower and motivate youth in your communities and, build a bigger and stronger team over the years to achieve the goal of wellness within your community.
With that, another thing is that we took the leadership, and one thing that Sarah just went back off was that he was not only a member and of the event, but he was serving as a youth there, and then he took the leadership spot as becoming a chair person on the wellness committee at the Future Inspired Native American Leaders Youth Council, and he took that ownership and leadership in order for this to lead his council and his committee towards collaboration with another council in order to formulate the New Year's resolution. So as he is the freshman, we really ownership that, and he should be recognized as a leadership and a leader, and that's like one thing we should focus on. Like if we can do it, you guys can do it, and that's like the main core that we are wanting to promote here today.
So thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys take our experience into consideration into your own communities. Thank you.
So thanks again to the Young River People's Youth Council for sharing that with us. We're going to be going back into the breakout sessions again. So for this session, we have Dr. Leslie Locklear on project planning. We Are Native with Ballin' on a Budget, and Well for Culture with Dosh Collins. And then here live, we'll have Pearly Elliman, hands-on wellness activities. So just a reminder for the people who are listening, the breakout sessions, you need to click in the chat on the link. And then once your session is over, come back to the live broadcast. Thank you.
Thank you to the Futures Youth Council and to the is it Young Rivers People's Council too. Thank you, Cordell. This mic has been tricky all day. Awesome. So just listening to the panel and listening to the youth councils, quite a bit, right? You feel like you've taken in quite a bit today and this afternoon. I just want to wrap up this afternoon session or my session We talked about decolonizing wellness earlier, and then our speakers here, Dr. Ridingen and Jelana, spoke about decolonizing language and decolonizing the efforts to save language. But I also want to kind of end the day today on decolonizing healing. So how many of you have ever had to get some type of surgery? Maybe you broke something, or you had to have an appendix or something. In the Western world, when we have surgery, right? We go to the hospital and you have surgery. I broke a finger here playing basketball. And then they had to stabilize my bone here. And then I went home. And I often think when we talk about healing, we also have to decolonize healing. So just think about it for a second. For us, healing is a different concept than what we might see in Western world. We have a different way of healing. And when I start to think about healing on a broader context, I think about my grandparents' lifestyle was different from my parents' lifestyle, and my lifestyle is different from my own parents. And unfortunately, I had alcohol in my family growing up. And when I think about my father's experience, I don't think he had the opportunity to heal the way I have an opportunity to heal. So for me, healing is about freedom. And when I think about my own grandparents who couldn't speak their language in a school, they didn't have the freedom to do that. I have the freedom to do that. It's freedom for me to speak my language. So healing for me in that context is about freedom to do that. Also, let's go back to surgery in the Western world. When you have surgery, that's just part of the healing process. But the recovery after surgery is more important than the surgery itself. Think about that for a second. When you experience something in your community and it's traumatic, and you have to do something in your community to heal, the recovery process is just as important as acknowledging that traumatic event. And many times in our life right now, for me and myself speaking, I spend a significant amount of time of trying to understand what that means to heal and recover with my own traditional perspective, and to decolonize and to take back maybe what it means to heal in my traditional way. And you might say, well, I don't know how my grandparents healed. How did they heal from something that they might have experienced? Maybe, and these are tough. We live in tough times sometimes. But if we are working with communities that are dealing with drug use or drug abuse, or meth or other types of drugs, or suicide, how did our grandparents heal from that 200 years ago? Did that happen 200 years ago? So our concept today of having to heal from what's happening in our community requires us to really dig deep for our own generation to understand healing for us. I think about that constantly. When you sprain an ankle and you feel a couple of days better and you're like, oh, my ankle feels better, I'm go play noon ball or go ball with my friends. There's a situation or a time when you feel better, right? So what does that mean for us collectively as a group of Native people to feel better? What does that look like for us? What does that sound like for us? How does that happen? For us as Native people, we do heal differently. We heal beautifully, but that's probably like social gatherings, or it has to. Or how many of you in your community see a lot more of warrior walks or runs or 10Ks or 5Ks? So it's not necessarily about the run or the walk. It's about connecting with the ground. That's part of our healing. That's what our ancestors did 100 years ago. They connected with the ground. They socialized and they connected with one another. So when next time you see a flyer about a early morning sunrise walk or a 5K, it's not about the run, it's about connecting. That's what our healing is about. That's a part of decolonizing healing. When you go to the hospital, the Western, let's switch back now, go back to Western. That's sometimes designed to heal alone. So they're like, nurses will be like, oh, leave them alone. It's quiet time. Can't be talking in the hospital after 8 p.m. We're different beings than that. And that's not always how Native people heal. We're social. We're social beings. We like to laugh or we like to make fun of people. Just kidding. We like to tease. There's a difference. Teasing and making fun of people are different. But we like to tease. We like to laugh. That's healing for us. It is. We like to be around babies. We like to socialize. We like to eat. That's healing for us. How many of you have gone somewhere and you've been so homesick and then the first thing you think of is, I either want to see somebody, a familiar face, or I want to eat something from my home place? That's healing. Our hospitals don't understand that sometimes. That's healing for us. How many of you sometimes get homesick or lonesome for something and you don't even realize what you're lonesome for, but you hear a song from your community or an elder and it fixes you? That's healing. So when we talk about healing, you have to think of all of those remedies that come together at one time. And when you think about the Wellness Warrior event, think about putting all of those elements together. Some of our parents didn't get the opportunity to heal, but we do. We get that opportunity. We get that opportunity right now to heal. We get that opportunity to talk about what we want to see in our schools. My parents didn't. My parents went to a boarding school and they went to a 5-year program. They didn't get to talk about what they wanted to see in the history books, but we do. We get to heal from that. My parents are survivors of the Relocation Act. That's a federally imposed policy to remove American Indians off of the reservation, and my parents were sent to San Francisco. They didn't get to heal from that, but I do. I get to decide my own freedom as to where I get to live and how I want to live there. We have the opportunity to do that. You know, my father was a veteran and he served this country and he was told not to talk about it until the 1970s. Can you imagine serving this country in an act of war but being told not to talk about it? That's what our code talkers did. They saved this country and then they were told not to talk about it. But we get to talk and we have a lot to say. You get to talk and you have a lot to say. That's our healing process. And sometimes if you dance or you sing and people tell you dance for those who can't or sing for those who can't, we have to take that a little bit further and heal for those who couldn't. And some of our elders or parents, they didn't get to heal. And the more you heal, the easier it is for our grandchildren to recover. And so sometimes you have to look at, what does it mean to heal? What are we becoming well from? A lot of our communities are affected from, again, health, our diabetes, heart disease, even our age expectancy. But we have the freedom and the responsibility to heal from that today. We have to make action on it. Some things were passed down to us and we inherited them really without some choices. You have a choice now what you pass on to the next generation. You either save the language or we don't. What are you going to pass on as far as responsibility to the next generation? So we have to work together. We have to work on it. Like the panelists here, we're talking about saving language. You are wellness warriors, you're language warriors, you're water protectors, you're language protectors, you're healing protectors. Those are all the things we are today. So healing is good too. I'm thankful that I can heal from things. I'm thankful that I have the ability to do that. I am thankful when I look at my children and they take on with great pride their ability to sing or dance for their tribal community. Because that was at one time something they couldn't do. Some of us have tribal customs that are only done at nighttime. That wasn't always the case. Some communities had to go and literally go underground and hide so that they could practice their traditional ceremonies in the dark or at night or underground. And so now we have practices that have remnants of that. And now we can live a different way. We can exercise our tradition differently because we don't have to hide it. So our healing is different from our parents' healing and our grandparents' healing. We don't have to hide about our language the way our grandparents hid their language. We can exercise it every day. We don't have to hide how we eat or how we celebrate. We can do that every day amongst ourselves. There are times when some of our parents and grandparents had to hide who they were as far as being Native. We don't have to do that anymore. When I see you in the airport, I'm going to yell you out. I'm going to be like, hey, I'm a Native over here. I go to the airports, it gets so lonesome. I'm like, wish there was more Natives. But I embrace my identity that way. I truly do. I'm so proud to be a Diné woman. I'm so proud to be a strong Diné woman, a mother. I'm proud to be an auntie because I think, oh, okay, I have a responsibility. And so do you. You have a responsibility to understand healing. And sometimes these are things that, all the things that we said, just think of the language we use today. Those might have been words that our parents or grandparents couldn't use. Our parents might have not understood the concept of decolonization because they were in the process of being colonized. And not something by choice, but something that was a part of their lifetime. And now we have the options of learning how to decolonize. We have an option, or we have the ability and the power to understand what we're going to resist. And there's times where I really have to think, wait, is that what we want for our community? Remember I shared with you earlier part of my job that I was blessed with this year? And one of the things that I have to consider right now is, do we continue building HUD, NHA like HUD homes, the multiple home projects? Because the cost of that is the same as the cost of one family that wants to live 20 miles off the road to preserve their identity. Do I spend $100 million on 20 homes, or a family that wants to preserve their identity? And those are the questions, and those are the concepts, or those are the leadership roles that you're going to have to make for your own people. How do we preserve our identity? How do we resist? How do we say no to no more projects? Because that's not how we lived, and that's not what we want for our community anymore. How do we understand resistance in our own community? When I was first started at Unity, there was a woman that spoke at a Unity conference. Oh, I won't even say the date. She came from Canada, from Alkaline Lake. She had a community that was almost 100% non-sober. They were drinking. She was a teenager just like you guys. And she said, I don't want to go home. And one night she didn't want to go through the door. And that was her story. And the mother, the next day, maybe sobered up and said, how come you don't want to come home? She said, I'm tired of seeing you drink. And the mother said, okay, I'm going to stop drinking today. The mother stopped. The father stopped. The neighbor stopped. And within a short period of time, the whole community was alcohol free. And that's the story of Alkaline Lake. You have to resist something in your lifetime, and there's probably something you have to resist today because it's affecting you. The things I have to resist in my life are going to be different than what you have to resist. But there's probably something already right now that you can see in your own community or in your own home that you have to resist. And there were things that I made a conscious choice to say, how my parents lived, I have to live differently. And I spoke earlier about parenting, and that's one of them. There were some things that my parents were affected by because of their experience in boarding school or relocation, or just the mere fact that they were the very first people in their whole lineage to ever experience the things they experienced, like a car, microwave, airplane, electricity, running water, travel, bank card. Those things they've experienced that no one else ever experienced before them that affected their life. And now I have to inherit some of those things, and I have to resist how I want to be a parent, or how I'm going to be an auntie or a relative, or a community leader, whatever it is. So the things I have to resist are different. The things I say, that's not what I want in my life. This is how I want to live my life, are different than how you might want to. And that's decolonizing. So is healing. I'll get back to healing. So healing's really important. It really is. I had to understand what stress was. I had to understand just a little bit of pressure is stress. And we all experience stress every day. And there's times where I'm like, oh man, I can't put too much on my plate. If my phone has to ring, just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. There's just times where I have to say, no, I remember earlier I was telling you to protect this space. And there's times where I have to say, no, I can't, this is it. If I try to put too much on my plate, I end up failing those relationships. If I put too much on my plate, I end up not fully being present somewhere or somehow. If I put too much on my plate, I end up not doing well on a project or a concept of something that I need to work on. So I really have to learn how to take that sacred space and that sacred care. That's my healing. And my healing is also too, is remember earlier I shared those pictures with you of communicating with one another. I don't know if we can go back to those pictures. I saw him get up. But I have to practice those, even with coworkers and community members. I think if I can, even if there's a time at the end of the day, at the end of the week, I'm frustrated or upset because something didn't happen or get done, I still have to practice talking nice, treating people well. And more importantly, why this is so important to me is when you really, really, really understand what happened to some of our elders, then you truly understand that we all deserve to talk good to each other because we survived something together. My tribe right now is celebrating 150 years post-treaty, 1968 treaty. Ms. Kropa talked a little bit about that. She called it a huelde. That's the long walk that our people went on. The more I've been learning about a huelde, it wasn't necessarily in the federal efforts to march my ancestors to Bosco Redondo was horrific. And the life they lived for 4 years of being in that refugee camp were horrific. But what we're celebrating is that our population went down from about 20,000 down to about 4,000 to the people who made it to the camp on the long walk. But it was the 4,000 people that were released and decided to walk back. Can you imagine what that might have been like to be in a refugee camp for 4 years, and then after the signing of one of the treaties to be released, and the one place you want to go back to is home? So they walked back 1,100 miles. And since then, 150 years later, we have one of the largest tribes. And I get to be a seed of that story. And I get to be a product of that story. So although we celebrate the long walk, we're really celebrating the 4,000 people that had strength, however they had strength, to walk back. So we've been celebrating 150 years of healing. And we have our own stories of healing. You have your own stories of healing. Your tribal people as a group have their own stories of healing. And so I just want to end on that and just think about what healing means for you and what healing means for your family. This year in July, I get to put my family reunion together. And I was thinking, oh, it's going to be like a unity conference. We need to honor our elders, and we need to play games, healthy games. We need to have good, healthy food. And if you get the opportunity to plan your family reunion, you get the opportunity to insert concepts of wellness and healing. And so when I was asked to plan our family reunion, I was like, all right, cool. And I started to think about all these things that we could do to help my mom and her brothers and sisters talk, my mom, brothers and sisters to heal, to identify their family. Remember, there was a speaker earlier that talked about how do we incorporate that back into our family? And you don't have to wait for a family reunion. You can start now. You can start doing all those things right now. And so I'm just really proud of that. Also, and something I'm looking forward to. Also, one of the things that's probably the most important part of my healing process is I went to school, and I went to school for a really long time. And my graduate work, my first master's is in education, but my second master's is in counseling. And it's through my counseling background that I spend a significant amount of time understanding and valuing listening. And you have to really learn the skill of listening. And I have to practice that still today. It's not you just achieve it and then you own it, but it's practice, nonstop practicing. And part of our healing process is to listen to one another. So even though you have youth council meetings and it might get all heated or debated, those are good too, but also practice listening. Really try to hear what your colleagues are trying to say. Really try to hear what your advisors or your parents are trying to say. When people talk or just share with you one or two sentences, They always drop a gem. I call them gems, or a door. And in 1 or 2 sentences, somebody is always inviting you behind that door. They want you to understand those gems that are dropped so you can pick them up and ask about it. That's the art of listening. Someone might say, "How are you?" "Oh, I'm doing okay." "A gem was dropped there." "Oh, you look kind of down. What can I do?" There's an invitation behind a door. So when you're listening to somebody, always look and listen for those doors to go into, or those gems that might be dropped. Listen to your parents. Try it tonight. Try it. Go home and say, "Hey, how was your day?" They probably freak out for a little bit, but ask them, "How was your day? Tell me something about today. Tell me something you learned." And start to listen for those gems. Start to look for those doors that they invite you to. They're going to present it. I promise you, in about 2 or 3 sentences into your conversation, you'll start to notice 4, maybe 5 different doors that they just invited you into. By the time you've gone into your 3rd or 4th door, that's where you have meaningful conversations. That's where you have connection. If you just walk by someone and you say, "Hey, how are you?" and walk off, there's no meaningful conversation there. There's no meaningful connection. If you say, "Hey, how are you? I was thinking about you. I wanted to text you, but, or I sent you a text. Did you get it?" "Oh, yeah, I did." And then a gem gets dropped, or a door opens, and you take that door, and by the time you pass the 3rd door, you have a meaningful connection. That doesn't happen when you're texting and you're Snapchatting. You actually have to see somebody. You have to actually listen to somebody. So I'll leave there. That's healing too. Listening is healing too. Okay, so that's it. See you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you very much for that, Pearl. All right, guys, do me a favor real quick. Everybody stand up. Let's stretch our legs. Get ready for the final portion of today. You guys have been troopers. I can't get over how we're like one of those sitcoms that's filmed in front of a live studio audience. So we're gonna need some more crowd noises here and there. Like if they saw 2 characters hug, like on Friends or something, they'd go, "Ooh." Okay. Do we need a? Okay. We have about 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. So as our panel gets started, I'm going to let you guys know a little bit about our next conversation. So part of Wellness Warriors is funded by our partners at WK Kellogg Foundation. So WK Kellogg Foundation actually has been releasing a lot of different platforms, different conversation guides. Their whole focus recently has been on creating conversations around racial healing. So just like Dr. Pearly Elliman was just speaking about, next as we transition into our panel, we're actually going to be following along with the WKKF Conversation Guide. So if you go onto their website, WKKF, the Kellogg Foundation, is really trying to challenge different young people to go into your own communities and start these conversations about what does racial healing mean? What does it even mean to be an Indigenous person nowadays? And we thought that the best way to do this was, since we were on a college campus, was to have people who have been involved in Unity, but also our ASU students, answer these questions. So all of these questions can be found online at the Kellogg Foundation website. And so we really encourage all of you who are out there watching to really download these conversation guides because it really is set up in a meaningful way. Not only do they have sample questions, but they have ways that you can set ground rules. So certain rules are that you're going to be open and listen, that you're not going to take offense or you're not going to overstep your boundaries on somebody else's beliefs. Because if you can imagine your home community, wherever you're from, sometimes these conversations, we call them courageous conversations for a reason. They could get heated, or people's feedback may not always be positive when they hear somebody else who doesn't necessarily agree with your views on life. So we want to encourage all of the Unity Youth Councils out there to really take a step in this direction and start small. Start with your youth council and then perhaps open it up to a community conversation. So next, I'm going to hand it over to our co-presidents who will be moderating our awesome panel, and we have some amazing ASU students who will be answering these questions. So thank you again.
All right, thank you, Laura and Ashley. So um, we're going to start our panel where, of course, we're going to go ahead and just engage in discussion amongst us. We'll also open it up for questions from our live audience as well as anybody online. So before we get into that, I wanted to go ahead and introduce to you guys, if you didn't already know, who are the people are on our panel. So first up, we have Mr. Josiah Lester, who is Navajo Dene, and he is studying political science and American Indian Studies here at ASU, followed by Miss Kyla Silas, who is Hopi, and she is studying family and human development. Last but not least, we have Mr. Lance Sanchez, representing the Tohono Nation, who is studying American Indian Studies and Community Advocacy and Social Policy. So with that being said, we're going to get right into it. So our first question is, how often do you think about your racial or ethnic identity? And once you're done answering, we can go ahead and move on down. So how often do you think about your racial or ethnic identity?
I think about my racial and ethnic identity probably every single day that I wake up. My grandma's told me to say my prayers every morning, especially in my language. And fortunately, that's probably one of the few things I know how to say in my language. So I thank her for that. And in my workplace, it's very diverse. I'm the only Native American representative in there, and I take pride in that, actually, for putting on for everybody else. So that's how much I think about it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kyla. I think about my racial and ethnic identity pretty frequently. I think obviously with my crown, I represent you all. So every morning, I wake up, look in the mirror, I'm brown. Then I go in class and I'm like the brownest kid in class. So I think about it then. So it's not something you can ignore. You can't ignore brown skin or your tan skin. So pretty frequently.
For me, I guess it's basically pretty much the same, especially coming to a very diverse school and joining a community of other Native students here from like not just Arizona, but across the country. So we pretty much have, these discussions about, our identity, race, and just a lot of informational stuff. So, yeah.
What aspect of your racial or ethnic identity makes you the proudest?
I think the fact that, we as, like I'm Native American, and so the fact that we are all unique in our own way, and, we have these different languages that we speak, our cultures, with the different traditions that we do, and it's just something that, I like to think about every day. So.
Just speaking off of what Lance has just said, we're all unique and we have all our different traditions. But I think that one thing that makes me the proudest is that we're resilient, we're adaptable. Each and every one of us has gone through something like either traumatic or it's been an issue for yourself, but you've been able to overcome it. You've been able to go run, you've been able to go pray. And it's just that as Native Americans, we have so many coping abilities and coping mechanisms that we're able to turn to, and I feel like that is our proudest and our greatest equality as Native Americans.
And I couldn't agree more with that. I think resilience is one of the biggest aspects that I take away from being Native American. Especially like Pearl said, our ancestors, they survived for us. They survived to give us this opportunity that we have here today. And I think that in itself is enough to be proud of who I am and continuing on the legacy for a better cause.
Cool. Thank you, guys. So, have you ever experienced a situation where your racial or ethnic identity seemed to contribute to a problem or an uncomfortable situation?
Personally, I don't think my identity has really come across anyone as in that kind of negative way. Um, um, I've been blessed to walk walk in two different paths. I grew up both in the city and both on the res, and I think that really helped me because it allowed me to grow wherever I moved. Change was different, and I'm sorry, I kind of forgot the question at this point. So.
So I have two for you guys. I have one for ASU and one for my personal life. So let's go with the first one. So I'm Miss Indian Arizona. So it's a student organization here at Arizona State University, and we have to go through USG, the undergraduate student government, to get our funds. So right now we're in the process of tying up ends for our pageant, and I don't know if all of you have been to a pageant, but this year we wanted to have a Pendleton for the Mr. and the Mrs. So in order to do this, I put it in our budget, and when I put it in our budget, I got a call from USG. Well, they talk to you through your laptop on the comments. So when I did that, they asked me to come and speak to them discussing what this Pendleton was. And for me, it was kind of confusing because we're in a time and age where you can look up words. So I was like, okay, well, this is kind of different. So let's go ahead. I went in the next day and they're like, can you explain to me what a Pendleton is and why it's so much? So I went in and then I started telling her the significance and why our Native American tribes use it, and the answer she gave me was, oh, so it's just a blanket. We can't pay over this amount. We only can pay $25 towards a blanket. And that alone, I consider my Miss Indian ASU title very professional. I try to carry it on that platform. So when I heard this, I was furious. I was with Mr. ASU and I was like, did she really just say it's a blanket? Can someone get this lady? So, I am also a part of the Alliance of Indigenous Peoples here at ASU. It's a coalition. So I expressed my concerns to Dean Vogel, who is the dean of the Tempe campus. And I expressed to her what they had said and why it was culturally inappropriate. And after she heard this and heard my concerns, she went back to USG and I suggested that they had some kind of training of how to speak to Native American student organizations because we're not a huge population, but our organizations here at ASU are one of the oldest here. And Miss ASU, we've been around since 1979. So hearing this it made me frustrated and made me feel disrespected. And my second one, this just happened last weekend. So my grandmother was flown down about 3 weeks ago. She got fairly sick. Now she's in a senior living home. And growing up, she was the one who took me out on hikes. She took me to tell me what the different plants meant, what we use them for, the different animals, what they signify, and their Hopi name that goes with them. So I seen her and it hurt me. It hurt me to see her hurting. It hurt me to see her in pain. So she told me, I need you to go hiking for me. I need you to get up and say hi to the sun, say a prayer for me. And being her granddaughter, I was like, okay. So me and Mr. ASU, you'll hear about Mr. ASU this entire time. We're always together. So I told him, let's go hiking. So I did. And just as Dr. Pearl had just stated, we feel and find our healing in the ground. So I went hiking Camelback Mountain. Me and RJ were being polite to everyone, saying good morning, hi, being nice hikers. Then we got halfway up. And we're okay. we need to stop walking. We're gonna go hard. So we like started going up. We're saying, excuse me, our left or right, whatever way we're going. And at this time, I had my visor on. Unity gave me a visor that said Skoden. So I had it in my high ponytail, and I was like, let's Skoden. So I was going hiking, and when we got to the top, there's a second lookout. We got to the second lookout, and I didn't have my earphones in. Me and RJ were talking, just really expressing our feelings during this moment. And there's a group of college girls, Caucasian college girls, and I heard as we walked by, they said, look at her, she's acting like she's Pocahontas. And I was like, ooh. I was like, okay. So I am very vocal about what I feel. So I was like, RJ or Mr. Is, you need to go say something to them or I will, and it's not going to be pretty. And he was like, you need to remember who you are, what you represent. And he's like, you're wearing a Unity hat. So I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, okay, fine. I came here for a specific reason for my grandmother. I'm going to make it to the top, and it's going to be the best feeling in the world. So as I was walking away, because I had looked at them for a fairly brief amount of time, I was like, did you really just say that to me? So I looked at them, and I was like, okay, it's okay. Just let it be. So I walked away, and they started whistling at me, like obnoxiously whistling at me. So I looked back, and they started clapping and said, oh, she can hear, she acknowledges it, or look at her. And then they just like started making so many different comments. And by then I was like, my head was gonna pop off. I was so upset. And it's just so disappointing to know that these students who are in Arizona with 22 federally recognized tribes have no respect for Native Americans. And in that way, that plays towards my racial, my ethnic identity. And it's upsetting to hear, but in those situations, what do you do? In those situations, if I was to go up to her and say what I was feeling, to really express what was going through my mind, I would have been seen as a savage. I would have been seen as that Indian. So, ta-da.
For myself, I have not, experienced any of this, but I still have that feeling in the back of my mind that someday something's gonna happen, and especially because the whole political climate right now, and especially this campus is so diverse, and there's just so many different groups and organizations, but just like Kyla had stated, she would want to say something, but she held her ground, she stood tall and strong. But for myself, I would definitely, keep that in the back of my mind and make sure that, when that time comes, and hopefully it doesn't, but, I would really like to, help educate or whoever, just the things that they're saying. So.
How often or how deeply do you interact with people of a different racial, ethnic identity other than your own? What is the nature of these relationships and interactions?
For myself, it would be pretty much, last semester I took a class and it was very, diverse, but majority was, Caucasian, non-native students. And so I really kind of gave my perspective and my overview of, the Native American story, my story, growing up as Native American as a Thanatom. And so every time something would come up, I'd bring it back and relate it to who I was, and then also to who we are, as people throughout Indian country. And so, yeah, it's pretty much in the classroom because majority of like students here are non-native students. So I feel like that's a big part of helping educate other students, especially in my Intro to American Indian Studies class. We there was at least maybe 5 native students in there, and the rest were non-natives, and it was really interesting to see how some of them were, we were talking about the issues that we face and that our ancestors faced, and they were really like, wow, that sucks, we apologize for that, because you guys shouldn't have been treated that way. And then you have those other ones that kind of just like, you really didn't want to hear their opinion. But yeah, thank you.
I would like to voice off of what Lan said. You know, at ASU, you find yourself in these large classes and you're the only Native American in these settings. So typically your first year, they'll have you introduce yourself. And anytime I introduce myself, it's always in my native tongue first. Because when I came down here and I told my grandparents, first they wanted me to go to NAU because it's 2 hours away from my reservation. But I really found a passion here at ASU. So that's the one deal I did make, was I was going to introduce myself in my native language. But I do interact with diverse students here at ASU. I sit on the Alliance of Indigenous Peoples, as mentioned before. I'm the facilitator of marketing, and we also sit with the 7 coalitions at ASU. So this is the African American Coalition, the South Asian Coalition, the Rainbow Coalition, Women's Coalition, our coalition, and I believe I'm forgetting a couple, but during these meetings, we have meetings bi-weekly, and there's all these different students with different backgrounds and different beliefs, and during this time, AIP, formerly AIC, takes this time to really speak about land acknowledgement. And all of us in here know what land acknowledgement is, but what is different is when you take this to the Council of Coalitions or to these other students, they don't understand. They don't understand the significance of the land. So it's really having to explain. And the best way I always explain it is explain it how my grandparents explained it when I was younger. How did they explain it to me so I understood it and grasped onto it so I could remember it for life?
For me, I think I work with diversity every single day as well. You know, in my workplace, I work with event planning. So for me, I have to go out and talk to everybody like they're my friend. So, you know, really, I see no difference in people. Um, you know, I think Bilagana, or if you want to call them Caucasian, you know, I think they, I see them just as I see another Native person. I think as Native Americans, we should not be inclined to not like somebody because their ancestors did something to us. We don't know that about everybody. You know, for example, I do a lot of awareness as well, like Lance and Kyla said, especially in the workplace. With my workers, some people think that TPs are everywhere. TPs exist on every reservation, and that we all live in them. And I'm like, no, that's not what it is. I explained to them what a Hogan is, you know, what our ceremonies are, and it's funny because my old roommate, our dorm mate, he actually went to through Tuba City the other day, and he was asking me all these different questions about the landscapes and like the type of work that's there. And I told him all this information. He had no idea. He's from Arizona. You know, his family's from Arizona. He had no idea about any of this stuff. And I think on our part, it's all about awareness when we talk to a lot of other diverse groups. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. So we touched on one of our earlier questions was, have you ever experienced something regarding your racial or ethnic identity that caused an issue for you? But now I want to turn it over to like the third person perspective. So like, have you guys ever witnessed that happening to anybody else? And if so, how did you react? And how did it make you feel overall if you ever were to witness something like that?
Um, like I said, personally, I've never really witnessed discrimination, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's the way we should be moving forward. Um, I've seen it when I was younger, but when I was younger, you know, I didn't have the voice that I do now. Um, but uh, if I were to see discrimination, I think I would definitely say something, as we all should. You know, fortunately, like I said before, I never have seen it actually in person, but I guess if I were to put it into context, I have seen it online, and it has happened to me. But I think online's the worst nowadays, and I think the best thing we can do is, I've actually called some people out online, like, hey, this is that, and I'm actually like the reverse troll. So like people who troll, I'm like the reverse option. Like, yeah, I like to consider myself that because that's what I do. I troll the troll. Exactly what I do.
Personally, not upfront, I don't think. It was more in those times where we'd be in class and the professor would be like, okay, now get in groups. And then typically the the college students would be by themselves in their own group. And I feel like it's not a big issue, but that's where we're at. I don't know if they're Caucasian people or any people that are non-natives or anything else are afraid or if they're uncomfortable with being in our group. But usually, typically, the college students always pair up with one another. And one time we actually did talk about it and we're like, does this happen in all the classes or is this just this class? But it does. It's just how willing you are as yourself. I think we also have to have accountability on our side to be able to create those conversations or take the initiative to be in the group or talk to them about whatever is going on in class.
Just to go off exactly what Kyla said, she said she had a conversation with, the other students in her class. And unfortunately, it does happen, because it literally happened in my class just the beginning of the semester. First day of class, the professor pair up with, someone sitting next to you, like the person sitting next to you. You guys are a group. And I was sitting in front of of friends, and they were behind me, and they're sitting next to this non-native girl, Caucasian, and so everybody already had their partners that were sitting in front. So I was paired up, and then the person next to us was paired up, and she actively went to the group in front of her, and said, "Would you like to pair up with me? I have no one." When she already had someone sitting right next to her, and it just kind of I was like, did that really just happen? I mean, it's awful and it's sad, but that's the truth, that's the reality. And I think that's something that we need to work on, well, not just us but them as well, and creating those partnerships and that discussion around feeling uncomfortable and why we shouldn't. And yeah. Thank you.
What advice or words of encouragement would you give to Native youth to host their own community conversations on racial healing?
Who do I want to go first?
I'll go. One advice or a piece of advice I could give, it's fairly vague, but I always like to call my grandpa or my grandparents my kwa. So after the incident of me being called Pocahontas, my grandfather, he's a big joker. He makes jokes out of everything. So I was like, okay, let me call him up, see what advice he has to give me. So I did, and he was like, you should be proud. You should be proud that you got called Pocahontas. You should be proud that you're Native American. He's like, don't let it tear you down. Don't let it affect you in any way because you made it at the top of that mountain. He's like, did they make it up? And I was like, no, they stopped at the lookout and went back down. He's like, exactly. They didn't even make it up. Why are you crying around? And he was just like, really just not teasing, but teasing me and laughing at me, but also encouraging me. And one advice is like, go back to your grandparents, go back to your elders, ask them what they had to go through. I asked my grandfather this a few times, how it was back then, or how were they treated, and how were they how did they feel in these settings that we are in now, or were they even allowed in these settings? And really talking to them. And I feel like he has the best advice because he got the worst of it. I'm getting the tail end, and I'm trying to close up and mend and unite our people with these other people and other people, but really trying to collaborate and finding a way not to take things personally. Yeah, it may hurt in that moment, but we have healing. We have to go run. That same night, I booked it. I was on the canal and I booked it. I put in my earphones, put on my Katsina songs, my traditional songs, and I ran. I ran it all off and I let it all go, because when all of that builds up inside you, it makes you such a hatred, or makes you hate other people, hate other ethnicities, when it's not the whole group themselves. It was just that one person. So really talking to your elders, I feel like always helped me. If you want my Kwa's number, he can tell you all his battles, his war stories. He goes on and on, but that's my piece of advice.
Could you actually restate that question or repeat the question?
what advice or words of encouragement would you give to Native youth to host their own community conversations on racial healing?
A lot of awareness. Um, I think just to bring the community together is one thing. Just I would suggest just do what you love. You know, even if you're from the city and you don't know a lot of your traditions or your ceremonies, just do what you love. If you love to paint art, paint art. Get your community involved in something that you love. Maybe you'll inspire somebody else out there, and they can inspire somebody themselves. For me, I liked video games before I liked anything else. I think I was introduced to Xbox like at 3 or 4 years old. I'm sitting here at college. Like, just because it's something you really like to do doesn't mean that it's not going to get you to the place where you want to go. So, if you're going to get your community involved in anything, just make sure it's something that you love.
Yeah. Okay. Just basically, if you feel like you're being treated unfairly or you want to create that discussion, use your voice. You all have a voice. You're all powerful in your own ways, and as long as you come and work together and find that, figure out that issue and combat it, you'll do amazing. And so just don't be afraid. To, use your voice. And yeah. Thank you.
All right. So, does anybody have any comments, concerns, anything they would like to contribute at all? This would be the time. Yes, ma'am.
So I know you guys are all older. I know you guys are older. You guys are in college or anything. How do you guys not really get after people are in high school and stuff that are very more not mature as you guys? How do you? I don't know. I don't really know how to say it, but how do you get after them? Basically, I know because I know Kyla's gotten after me. I know Kyla previously. She's gotten after me in grades, and I'm just wondering have you guys gone after us because of how we are, how we handle things and everything like that? Because we're more of not I guess some of us are mature, some of us are not. But those that aren't and those that think they are, I don't know how to explain it. How do you guys?
So for the people on the panel, would it be fair to ask how them being where they are in their life, how do they impact or / hold younger people accountable? Is that kind of it? A little bit? Okay. You guys good with that? Okay.
I get what you mean. I have a younger sister. My second, so I'm the oldest out of 6 siblings. So my second sister, second oldest, she is a sophomore in high school. And man, oh man, do I have some words to share. Just kidding. But I did have to get after Adora a few times, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't me yelling at her. It was me sitting down, going through and talking about what she was feeling and what was going on. And it's the same thing I do with my younger sister. She's young. She not barely, but she just moved on from her freshman year. So she's just getting the feeling of high school. But when I talk to her, I tell her about what I went through. I tell her about the things I learned here at college because I'm a family and human development major. So we're always talking about adolescence, and I'm still technically an adolescent. But so telling her how her brain changes. The brain right now is even though it may feel like your brain has fully developed, it hasn't. And everything and your reactions aren't entirely your fault. Did you guys know you guys have to have 9 hours of sleep every night, and your brain is more awake during nighttime than it is during the day? So that can explain why a lot of you guys aren't waking up to greet the sun. But just really, I think when I take it and talk to my siblings, I tell them what I learned in class. I tell them what's going on. But if I want to turn it traditional, then I'm gonna call up my grandpa and be like, she's acting up. You need to get her. But even on my own rule, as an older sister, I have to get after them. I have to tell them, you need to you need to chill out, you need a moment to yourself, I'll come back, talk to you. And if it's happening at school, if it's something with your team, if it's something here with our family, we gotta talk it out. The best thing to do when you're going through something is talking it out. Write it down. Talk to someone. Talk to the wall. Just get it out there, because when you put it out into the world, that's my quote calls it. He's like, when you put it out into the world, it makes more sense. When you put it out into the world, you're speaking the truth, or you're speaking it alive, basically. So the way I hold my siblings accountable, I guess, is just really talking to them and telling them about their different development stages that they're going through right now.
Again, to go off Kyla, it's basically just having that conversation with them, especially when you're in a position such as, a young leader in like a youth council. There's been numerous times where I've had to talk to my former youth council members about, just, the things they'd say, they didn't really think about what they said, and it just came out, or just their actions. And, we look up to people, and then we also have people that are looking up to us, and then so on and so on. And so it's like you have to tell them that, you have other younger youth watching you. And so, you need to be able to be that person that, that's a role model, be the person that you want to be. Yeah, you want to be in the future, or just growing up. And so again, it's just holding them accountable to the words and their actions that they do. So
to go off of that, I think I would say you would have to lead by example. I think leading by example is one of the biggest steps in teaching your younger siblings. I have a lot of younger siblings, so much that I can't even keep count. Counting the steps in there. And also, what was I gonna say? Lost my train of thought. Yes, leading by example. I think every day I tell my sisters, you're not gonna wake up in one day and just end up at a university. You got to work to it. They don't know everything, all the struggles that I've gone through, but they know all the ups that I've gone through. And I think that, showing them and capturizing that and showing it to them, seeing what they can do. I think that's the biggest thing that inspires somebody, because you want to be in that position when you look up to a celebrity, maybe like Drake, Beyonce. I don't know. Don't you want to be Beyonce for like one day? Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't you want to be Drake for one day? So take that for example. Wouldn't you want to be Josiah or Kyla or Lance for one day? Wouldn't you want to walk the university? Graduate. It's all about leading by example, in my opinion. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, so that's going to do it for our panel discussion. Let's give a round of applause for our contributors. Thank you guys very much for your words and for that different perspective, especially with your guys' background and your guys' experiences. I know it means a lot, especially for the younger ones who are wondering what they're going to do at one of the most confusing stages in one's life, like during that window of time. So it's appreciated, and you guys are absolutely right that leading by example, it's you can only expect from others, especially young people, what you're doing. So once again, we really appreciate it, and thank you for being a part of this. So thank you. One more round of applause.
Okay, guys, so we're rounding up. There's a video showing right now for our live audience. Make sure everybody.
Hey Wellness Warriors! I'm here to announce our next Unity Wellness Challenge. We want to see how you've been doing in your Indigenous health wellness events in your community. We also want to see how you've been staying active individually, whether that's running, dancing, doing a millie rock, anything. It don't matter. Stay active. That's the whole point of this whole challenge, right? We'll be picking the top 3 submissions to be part of our Wellness Warrior Summit. Prizes will include a registration to the National Unity Conference. Beautiful thing right here. The videos must be 3 minutes long, and it has to be submitted by midnight by May 31st. You go, girl, or boy, whatever, you go. You just go, whether that's running, dancing, anything. Stay active. Really rock if you gotta, folks.
Okay, welcome back. Thank you so much. That was actually our video submission contest. So for those of you who are watching, we are actually kicking off right now our video contest. So from now until, well, what is the deadline, Josh? May 31st. So from now until May 31st, everyone in Unity, if you submit a video of a wellness warrior project similar to what the final and Young River peoples did themselves, how they were showcased and they were showing their wellness initiative. If you make your own video, this wellness warrior contest, you can submit them to Unity by email or on the Unity Facebook page. You yourself could win a prize pack for 3 free registrations to the national conference. So we challenge all of the Unity, anybody who's watching, even if you've never been to Unity before, if you submit a video showcasing a wellness event that you've hosted over the last 3 years in your community, you'll have the chance to win 3 free registrations to Florida National Conference. So it goes from now until May 31st. So good luck to everyone, and we hope that you'll submit a short video. Thank you, guys. All right, so for all of, I need a youth volunteer to come up here. Youth volunteer, anyone, come up here, whoever's first. Youth. Yes, so we're back. And we're back. Sorry about that technical difficulties. Thank you. We hope you all stayed on the line. So the moment we've all been waiting for, we're going to pull some prizes. So if you're still live right now, we are going to do a couple of different raffles right now. The code word for the National Conference registration is alligator. So if you are watching live right now and you'd like to be entered into the raffle for the National Conference registrations, type into the chat box the word alligator. So all of those who have participated and entered code words throughout this virtual conference, on Monday, live on our Facebook, Jared Bassey will be announcing the different winners. So check out Unity Facebook on Monday morning to see who was the live winners from our virtual contest. But right now we're going to announce, we had a youth volunteer come up. These are all of the different youth councils who are watching live from their live watch parties. So one of these, all of these up here, one of these youth councils will win 4 free registrations to the national conference for hosting their own watch party. Okay? So pick which one will it be? Give her a drum roll.
Nancy Mason, Muskogee Nation Youth Services.
Yes! Awesome. Oh, one more. So congratulations, Nancy. You have 4 free registrations for Muskogee Youth Council of Oklahoma. So we look forward to seeing you guys in Florida. And so now for our live audience. Our live audience will also be receiving, we're going to be pulling three right here from the live audience to receive free registrations to the national conference. Okay? So all of these, oh, where's yours? Oh, she can't pull. Okay. Anybody not get one? She can't pick yourself. Come on up here, Lance. Give Lance a round of applause. All right, Lance, we're going to make 3. Thank you so much for our live audience. We couldn't have done it without them. So we are going to pick 3 winners right here.
Ready? All right. 1830345.
Wait, say again?
1830345.
Oh! Anyone? Let's see someone. Yay! Come on up here. So one of our winners, come introduce yourself. Just say your name and what youth council you're with.
My name is Caleb Mueller, and I'm here with Sue Chavez.
Yay! Awesome. All right, who's the next person?
1830364.
No! All right, really big to that last one from our live audience. Hey, from a different youth council. Cool. Okay, go ahead. Last.
1830374.
Yay! Go ahead. Thank you so much. So we really thank everybody for watching. We're really proud that, a winner was chosen from each of the youth councils who are here participating in our live audience. Thank you all for the ones who were participating in the watch parties as well. One last thing before we leave, remember there are a couple of different ways that we are still giving away different Unity registrations through different ways. We have the video contest, May 31st. The National Unity Executive Committee petition is actually due June 7th. We want you to mark these dates down in your calendar so you can make sure that your Native youth across the nation have all the opportunities in the world. We also have the online registration ends June 15th. So make sure that if you are planning on attending this national conference, you do want to make sure to get your registration in before June 15th. Anything after June 15th will be considered online registration, and this year that price goes up. So we want to make sure that if you are planning to attend, make sure you do your online registration before June 15th. We also want you to know, keep a lookout on Unity's different platforms that we do have scholarships and awards that are given away every year. We ask for nominations. Our Youth Council of the Year,
actually was the Young River People's Council. So, if you know another youth council, make sure that you nominate them. They're chosen based on their community advocacy and how much they participate in the community. We also have awards for scholarship for male and female. And then we also have different awards for our advisors of the year, because we know we couldn't do anything without our advisors. So again, National Unity Conference is July 4th through the 8th. I do want to end just by touching briefly. Wellness Warriors is encompassing of a lot of things. As we've learned today, we spoke from the heart of how unity really embodies these four areas, these four pillars of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all of these things. It takes a lifetime of learning. So we thank you for your dedication to continuing that process with community. One more save the date that I want to close on is our ODJVP initiative. So the Peer Guide program, we're really hoping that each of you will reach out to different Native communities. We know that we've all been blessed with leadership roles and opportunities in our communities. And this Peer Guide program is actually a different type of leader. We're looking for youth who may be impacted by the criminal justice system, maybe themselves, or maybe somebody that they know that they've been close to has been incarcerated, or maybe they've been through foster care system. What we're really looking at is youth who have overcome obstacles in their life that could reach back into the community to reach at-risk youth who may not have the same opportunities that we do to attend these national events. So if you know any youth in your community, or it doesn't have to be something that they overcame personally, but it could be something that they've had a hard time in their lives, but they're still striving and they're still wanting to reach forward. Unity is breaking out of its shell and really reaching out into the community to reach a different type of youth leader. So all of these opportunities are coming up. The applications to nominate somebody, or you can nominate yourself for the Peer Leaders program, actually closes on April 17th. So we only have a couple more weeks. That's available on Unity. So if you know somebody, make sure you encourage them, because a lot of times when people have been through something, they may not see themselves as that leader. But we want to reach out to the community and uplift youth who may have been that survivor in the community to apply for the Peer Guides program. So with that, we'd like to thank you for attending Unity's very first virtual conference. Thank you guys.